Chapter 1602 Sword-Head Serpent's Territory. Chapter 1602 Sword-Head Serpent's Territory, a place where primals and predators live together? We call those territories here. For example, we're currently in the Sword-Head Serpent's territory. Ingzi said. Yuan surveyed their surroundings with a raised eyebrow and further clarified, there's been a slight misunderstanding. Cities also have buildings for dwelling and marketplaces where you can buy or sell things. There's no place like that in the primal expanse. While the idea of buying and selling exists, it's rarely practiced. Most predators engage in trade, but for everyone else, acquisition typically involves taking directly from others. Ingzi said. In the primal expanse, the saying the strong prey on the weak was not just a principle but a stark reality. Here, if someone desired something, they simply took it by force. And since trading was the norm, there was no need for currencies in this world. Yuan pondered for a moment before asking, then, do you know a way to leave this place? I don't understand. I am trying to return to my own world, he clarified. I am not sure that's even possible. Ingzi shook her head. There has to be a way. In my world, we have these specific areas where magical beasts, primals spawn endlessly, and I believe they came from this world. The fact that I managed to travel to this world proves that our worlds are connected in some way. Even if you say that, I have no clue. However, I may know someone who does. Can you take me to them? In exchange for something. What do you want? Something from your world. Do you have anything specific in mind? Yuan asked. No, not really. Yuan pondered for a moment before retrieving several things from his spatial ring. The first item was a spirit stone. He didn't know if they existed in the primal expanse and wanted to find out. He also took out several divine-grade treasures and some random pills. Lastly, he took out some food, mostly meat skewers that he had saved up for occasions. Is there anything you want? Ingzi inspected all of the items with great interest. Her eyes were essentially sparkling with excitement. What is this? Ingzi pointed to the spirit stone and asked. It's a spirit stone. We, humans, use it to cultivate by absorbing the spiritual energy contained inside. We also use it as a currency to buy things. What about these things? They smell very nice. Ingzi pointed to the meat skewers next. They're meat skewers. This one is made from beef. This one is from chicken. This one is made from lamb. Yingzi's gaze danced back and forth between the spirit stone and meat skewers without giving the treasures even a single glance. After a moment of pondering, she pointed to the meat skewers and said, I want these. Yuan nodded and handed her 12 sticks, 4 of each flavor. Ingzi accepted the skewers with a smile on her face. This was Yuan's first time seeing any real emotion on her face. However, the unique and rich aroma of the skewers quickly permeated the area, alerting the primals nearby. Since skewers were unknown in the primal expanse, their enticing aroma was as novel and irresistible as the scent of humans, sending the primals into a frenzy. When Yuan noticed this, he immediately said to Ingzi, can you quickly finish eating before the others arrive? However, Ingzi shook her head and said, no, I will slowly savor this food at my own pace. If anyone dares to steal from me, I will kill them. Yingzi's presence was still non-existent, so the nearby primals could only smell Yuan and the skewers. Dragons were at the top of the food chain in the primal expanse, so primals instinctively avoided them. Thus, no one dared to approach Yuan despite his relatively low cultivation level. However, this caution was abandoned once they caught the enticing scent of the meat skewers. Yuan wanted to run away, but he also wanted to see Yingzi's prowess. In the end, he decided to stay with her. A few moments later, the first primal to appear before them resembled a colossal elephant as large as a mountain, its brown skin adorned with red spots across its body. Just its size alone was menacing enough, but its strength was also at the divine sovereign level. Yet, when its gaze landed on Ingzi, who wasn't even looking at it, the massive creature's body trembled, and a deep sense of fear flickered in its eyes. After a loud trumpet-like roar, the elephant turned around and stomped away faster than it approached them. What the? Yuan was surprised by the primal's reaction. The elephant-like primal's reaction to Ingzi was puzzling, as she wasn't exuding any presence or aura of danger that could explain why such a formidable creature would flee from her. This hinted at unseen powers within Ingzi that Yuan did not yet comprehend. The next several primals that appeared reacted similarly to the first. Each time their gaze landed on Ingzi, they displayed an intense reaction of fear, quickly turning and fleeing as if their lives depended on it. As for Ingzi, she didn't even bother looking at the primals that showed up and continued to enjoy the skewers in her grasp at her own place. Many minutes later, when Ingzi reached her last skewer, Yuan suddenly sensed an unfathomable presence appear, and it was quickly approaching them. What a powerful presence. This primal must be at a level that rivals an immortal. Yuan cried inwardly. When he turned to investigate the presence, he saw a massive black snake, even larger than the elephant, with a horn shaped like a sword protruding from its head. Is that the sword-head serpent? Yuan asked Ingzi. Looks like it, she calmly confirmed. Will you be fine against it? Ingzi didn't respond as she was busy chewing the meat in her mouth. The sword-head serpent arrived shortly later. However, unlike the other primals, it did not immediately run away after seeing Ingzi. Although it still showed fear in its gaze, it refused to run away for some reason. Chapter 1603 Chaotic Essence. Chapter 1603 Chaotic Essence. After silently staring at Ingzi for several moments, the sword-head serpent spoke. If you value your life, leave behind that meat and get out of my territory. Having a territory named after oneself signifies dominion over that area, and entering another's domain without permission typically invites conflict. Should the sword-head serpent flee from an unwelcome guest in its own territory, it would risk becoming a laughingstock, vulnerable to attacks from others who might perceive it as weak. This was why the sword-head serpent refused to flee despite its fear of Ingzi. Driven by the need to protect its territory and maintain its pride and honor, it was prepared to face even death rather than show weakness and risk losing the territory that it had ruled for many decades. In response to the sword-head serpent's threat, Ingzi simply glanced at it. Her look alone sent an unfathomable wave of fear coursing through the sword-head serpent, paralyzing it with dread. However, the sword-head serpent somehow managed to shake off the fear and moved to strike Ingzi. Seeing the sword-head serpent approach, Ingzi pointed at it with her empty skewer sticks. In the next instant, the serpent froze completely as a massive black spike emerged from the ground, or more precisely from its own shadow, impaling its body with lethal precision. The life in the sword-head serpent's eyes vanished instantly, and its lifeless body thudded heavily to the ground, sending a resounding echo through the area. Yuan was left speechless by how effortlessly Ingzi had disposed of the sword-head serpent, which would rival the strength of an immortal in the 9 heavens. She's much more fearsome than I'd expected, he swallowed inwardly. Once she finished all of the skewers, Ingzi said, Okay, I'll bring you to that individual now. Follow me. Ingzi suddenly disappeared into thin air. Huh. Yuan's eyes widened with shock. He wasn't even able to follow her movement, much less follow her in person. Ingzi returned a few moments later and asked him, What's wrong? Why aren't you following me? You're too fast for me. I couldn't even see your movements, let alone follow you, he sighed. Can you slow down a little? If we travel at your pace, it'll take centuries to reach our destination, she said. Centuries? How massive is this place? Yuan was dumbfounded to hear this. Very. Yuan sighed. Is there no other way? Asking me to travel at your speed is unreasonable and, quite frankly, impossible. I can help you, but I want that shiny object you call Spirit Stone, Ingzi said. Deal. Yuan immediately retrieved the biggest and shiniest Spirit Stone in his possession before handing it to her. Ingzi played around with the Spirit Stone for a few minutes before tossing it inside her shadow. The ability to manipulate shadow, huh? Yuan thought to himself. Okay, let's go. Ingzi suddenly enveloped Yuan with a mysterious energy before bringing him with her. The method she used was similar to using chi manipulation to move something or someone. They were moving so fast that Yuan only saw a blurred background as they traveled. Ingzi, what's this weird energy you're using? It feels like spiritual energy, but it's clearly not. Yuan asked. You mean chaotic essence? It's what we use to cultivate, she explained. There are 2 types of essence in this world. Chaotic essence and pure essence. There isn't much pure essence, but that doesn't matter since we can only cultivate chaotic essence. Yuan wondered if this was the reason why Yuning and Xiaohua claimed they couldn't cultivate properly. Pure essence must be spiritual energy. However, this world lacks spiritual energy, and humans cannot absorb chaotic essence. It's almost like the 9 heavens but inverted. In that case, chaotic essence might be something like impurity for us. It didn't take long for Yuan to understand the power sources of primal expanse. By the way, how long will it take to arrive at our destination now? He asked a moment later. About half a year, she calmly responded. Half a year. Yuan cried out loud. He had never anticipated that reaching their destination would take so long. At this rate, he might be stuck in the primal expanse for much longer than he had desired. Yet there was nothing he could do. If it weren't for Ingzi, he might actually be stuck in this world forever. When the divine heaven used to be one world, it would take immortals hundreds of years to travel around the world without teleports. Yuning suddenly recalled. At the speed we're currently traveling, I wouldn't be surprised if this little girl already surpasses the fastest flying treasure in existence, she continued. Do you know what kind of bloodline she has? She appears to have the ability to manipulate shadows. Yuan asked. I know of several bloodlines that can control shadows to a certain extent, and from what I've seen so far, it doesn't rule out any of them. I'll let you know once I lower the candidates. Alright. What about chaotic essence? Do you know anything similar to that in the 9 heavens? Yuning pondered for a moment before responding. There are several areas in the divine heaven where cultivators are unable to cultivate due to the chaotic spiritual energy, such as the primordial chaos. I have never been to these places myself, so I cannot confirm firsthand, but according to what I've heard from those who have experienced it, it's similar to what I am experiencing in this world. How come I am able to absorb this chaotic essence? He wondered inwardly. Yuan tried to absorb the spiritual energy there again, and sure enough, his body absorbed everything without any issue. As for the quality of the energy, it was incomparably better than the 4th heaven. Half a year, huh? What should I do in the meantime? Yuan began pondering how he should spend the next half a year. Chapter 1604 Training with Kelan. Chapter 1604 Training with Kelan. While Yuan journeyed through the primal expanse with Yingzi, Sujechi was traversing the 9 heavens, gathering more information about the primal expanse. Since this topic was related to magical beasts, she focused on meeting the beast clans such as the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan. At one of the most ancient dragon clans in the Supreme Heaven, Sujechi requested to meet with their historian. The primal expanse, huh? It's been a very long time since someone has brought this place up. The Dragon Clan's historian, Long Qi, spoke with interest as he combed his white beard. He retrieved a large, ancient scroll and opened it, revealing all sorts of information on the primal expanse. Don't let the amount of information here fool you, Lady Su. They're all just speculations and rumors. In truth, nobody has been to the primal expanse. Then where did the rumor even come from? Who started it? Sujechi asked. Do you know how some people claim they have memories of their past life? Well, some beasts vaguely recall a place called the primal expanse, where they lived in their past life. According to these individuals, the primal expanse is strictly ruled by beasts, so no humans exist there. It's exactly like how Yuan described that place. Sujechi thought to herself. Do you mind if I borrow this scroll? She asked Long Qi a moment later. Of course, but why are you suddenly interested in the primal expanse, if you don't mind me asking? Sujechi pondered whether she should reveal the fact that the primal expanse was not just a rumor but existed somewhere outside the 9 heavens. I heard someone mention it and it piqued my interest. That's all. In the end, Sujechi decided not to reveal this information yet, fearing it might make the world a little chaotic. I need more information about the primal expanse before I reveal this information. If I even should, she thought to herself. After leaving the Dragon Clan, Sujechi visited the Phoenix Clan and asked for information on the primal expanse. She would visit multiple clans over the next several weeks, gathering as much information as she could. Meanwhile, Meixiu and the others began their training with Kelan after a quick assessment. It only took a single 5-minute spar with each of them for Kelan to understand their prowess and how to train them. I will spend a day training each of you, starting from the one I think is the weakest currently. Kelan's gaze fell on Meixiu as he spoke. So you'll be first. Okay, she nodded. I already knew I was quite weak compared to the others, but it still hurts. Meixiu sighed inwardly. Although she had been rigorously trained in combat by her mother from a young age to serve the Yu family, she couldn't match Yuxiang, who had the advantage of training with a cultivator since childhood. Kelan shifted his gaze to Yuxiang next. You'll be training with me after her. Then he looked at Lan Yingying and said, You're third. On the 4th day you'll be training with me. Kelan looked at Meixiu, who wore a surprised expression on her face. Huh? Me? She pointed at herself, seemingly in disbelief. Yes, you, Kelan confirmed. Meixiu turned to look at Li Jinsi for a moment before looking at Kelan again. You think she's stronger than me? Surely you are mistaken. Meixiu couldn't believe that she would be weaker than Li Jinsi, who had a much lower cultivation. Kelan shook his head and explained, While your cultivation is indeed superior, when it comes to experience and execution in combat, she is superior. How is that possible? There's no way she has more experience than me. I have lived for over 10,000 years. Meixiu refused to believe that someone as young as Li Jinsi would have more combat experience than her. You don't have to believe me. The two of you can spar with each other, without any cultivation. Kelan shrugged. She merely looked at Li Jinsi, who calmly nodded and said, I can do it. She merely then said, please don't take this the wrong way. I just have a hard time believing that you have more experience than me. Don't worry, I won't. Li Jinsi said. They entered one of the arenas available at the Grand Mystic Sect's training ground sometime later. For this spar, you are not allowed to use your cultivation or techniques, so you'll be limited to just your weapon and the basics. Movement techniques are allowed. Good luck. Shi Meili said to her. You too. While Shi Meili and Li Jinsi fought each other, Yuan asked Ingzi to stop for a little so he could write a note for Meixiu. Where did you go just now? You never gave me an answer. Ingzi questioned him. It's a little complicated. Yuan wasn't sure how to explain cultivation online in a way that she would understand. He pointed at his body and said, You see this body? It's actually not my real body but a part of my soul. My real body is somewhere far, far away, and I have the ability to return to my real body whenever I want. Whenever I return to my real body, this one will disappear until I return. Do you understand? Ingzi took a moment to understand his words. Eventually she nodded and said, I understand. Where is your real body? Is it in the 9 heavens? No, it's actually outside the 9 heavens, sort of like the primal expanse. However, that world is much smaller. If this isn't your real body, why do you need to find a way to leave the primal expanse? Can't you just create another body? Ingzi then asked. Even if this isn't my real body, it's still part of my soul, which is arguably even more valuable than my physical body, so I can't just abandon it, Yuan said. Is that so? They resumed their journey shortly after. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 1605 Meixiu's Training? Chapter 1605 Meixiu's Training. This is ridiculous. Shi Meili cried inwardly as she desperately defended herself against Li Jinsi's endless assault. It'd only been several minutes since they started their spar, yet she was already pushed into a corner. Shi Meili had never anticipated that someone other than Yuan could possess such outrageous talents. Wow. Li Jinsi's growth has been tremendous lately. What kind of training did she undergo in seclusion? Yuxiang muttered, her voice filled with awe. Despite having trained for the same amount of time, Li Jinsi's progress had far outstripped her own. Her experience doesn't match her age, but I can say the same thing about Yuan and many other geniuses out there, Kelan said. In this world there are 3 types of talent. Those who are gifted just enough to be above the average, those who stand above the majority as true geniuses, and then we have monsters that defy logic. Li Jinsi's talent would enter the monster category. As for Yuan, I believe he is a separate kind of monster, the type that dominates over other monsters. Many minutes later, Li Jinsi barely secured her victory against Shi Meili. You're very strong. Other than 2 other people, you're the 3rd person ever to push me this far. Li Jinsi said afterward, her body soaked in sweat. Besides Yuan, who is the other individual? Shi Meili asked as she lay on the arena with a dazed look on her face. She's our mentor. Li Jinsi said as she turned to look at Meixiu and Yuxiang. After a moment of silence, Shi Meili released a deep sigh and said, I admit defeat. You're definitely better than me when it comes to fighting experience. I apologize for looking down on you. Li Jinsi extended her hand and smiled. It's okay. Shi Meili accepted the hand and was pulled back to her feet. We will begin our training tomorrow, Kelan said to them before dismissing them a moment later. Everyone returned to their own living quarter, which was provided by the Grand Mystic Sect. Meixiu logged off after returning to her room. The first thing she did was look for Yuan's note, and sure enough there was one by the bed. Her eyes widened with surprise after reading it. Half a year just to visit someone who may or may not know how to leave the primal expanse? Meixiu knew it would take a while, but she hadn't anticipated it would be to this extent. Once she finished reading, Meixiu began writing her own note. She mentioned their meeting with Senior Bai and Su Jiechi and their training sessions with Kelan and suggested scheduling a meeting to discuss their experiences in more detail in a few weeks during the Eternal Lotus's boot camp. The following day, Meixiu began her training with Kelan. I see, so he won't be back for at least half a year. That will be more than enough time to transform you guys. Now, in order to wield a bow properly, you must first build a foundation and strengthen your body, so begin with tempering your body. Kelan retrieved a spatial pouch and handed it to her. You will use these when you're not training with me to temper your body. It will be very painful, but it's the fastest and most effective way to temper your body. I also grabbed a few body tempering techniques for you. You can choose the one you like the most. Since you're not trying to become a body refiner like myself, you don't need any crazy body tempering technique. Meixiu spent the next hour reading the techniques before choosing one. Good. Then focus on your technique today. We will begin your training next week. Kelan spent the entire day helping Meixiu comprehend the technique. At the end of the day, Meixiu returned to her living quarters and began her body tempering process. Inside the spatial pouch provided by Kelan contained all sorts of medicine that could only be found in the upper heavens. While they were not priceless treasures, it wasn't something that could be obtained easily. This wasn't Meixiu's first time tempering her body, since she would occasionally temper her real body. In fact, every member of the Demon Sealing faction tempered their body to a certain extent. Not only did it strengthen their bodies, but it also helped them with Leah's Spartan-like training. After following Kelan's instructions inside a jade slip, Meixiu tossed a specific medicine into the bathtub. After waiting for half an hour, she entered the hot water. The moment the tip of her toes touched the water, intense pain coursed through her entire body. "Ah!" Meixiu exclaimed, immediately jumping back and staring at the bathtub with wide eyes. She had endured many painful moments in the past, from her first body tempering experience to training with Leah, but none compared to the excruciating pain she had just experienced. However, she could already feel her body strengthening just from that slight touch. Meixiu silently stood there, staring at the bathtub with a nervous gaze. Eventually, she clenched her teeth and entered the bathtub again, sticking an entire foot inside the water. MMH? Meixiu nearly lost consciousness from the pain but managed to endure it. Many minutes later, once she felt like she could endure more, she submerged her other foot into the water. An hour later, she submerged the rest of her body in the water, which increased the pain substantially. Meixiu couldn't handle the pain for long and jumped out of the bath a minute later to catch a breath. Over the next several hours, Meixiu repeated this process, slowly increasing the time she could remain submerged in the water. The medicine was so potent that even after an entire day, the water retained its full strength, as effective as when it was first prepared. As for Meixiu's condition, she felt better than ever before, her body brimming with energy. Although the experience was incredibly painful, the rewards were significant enough to motivate her to continue. Chapter 1606 Qi Resistance Ball. Chapter 1606 Qi Resistance Ball. The day after Meixiu's training, Yuxiang met Kelan at the training grounds. As someone who specializes in spiritual attacks, you need to focus on increasing your spiritual energy, spiritual strength, and your control. While increasing your spiritual energy will come naturally through cultivation, in order to increase your spiritual strength and control, you need specific techniques and rigorous training. Kelan retrieved a black, round metal ball from his spatial ring. At first glance, this metal ball appeared quite ordinary, but it gave out a peculiar aura that made Yuxiang feel anxious. This is a Qi resistance ball. As its name suggests, it has very high resistance against spiritual energy, even outright repelling it if it's weak enough. Your training will consist of levitating this Qi resistance ball until you can hover it above your head and keep it there for an hour. Give it a try. Yuxiang nodded and proceeded to wrap her spiritual energy around the ball. However, the moment her spiritual energy touched the ball, she immediately lost control, causing it to disperse into the air. What? Yuxiang's eyes widened with surprise, and she quickly tried again, only to find that the results were the same. Not only is your spiritual energy too weak, but your control is also atrocious. The spiritual energy was too flimsy. Watch how I do it. Kelan said before wrapping his spiritual energy around the ball, lifting it into the air with seemingly no effort. Can you see the difference? He asked her. Yes. While my spiritual energy is spread apart like a cloud of mist, yours are tightly compressed and wrap around the ball like sheets, Yuxiang explained, highlighting the difference between the way they manipulated their spiritual energy. Kelan nodded in approval and took out a technique before handing it to her. This will teach you how to properly control your spiritual energy. For the next 2 hours, Yuxiang studied the technique. Once she had memorized it, she tried to pick up the Qi resistance ball again. However, while her control over her spiritual energy had improved, it was still nowhere near being able to touch the ball, much less pick it up. Yuxiang returned to studying the technique again, and Kelan would give her advice here and there. By the end of the day, while Yuxiang still failed to pick up the ball, she was able to cover it with her spiritual energy without it dispersing. You can keep the Qi resistance ball to practice on your own time. I want significant improvements by our next session, said Kelan. It was Lan Yingying's turn the next day. Before we begin, I must admit that out of the entire group, it's going to be the trickiest to train you who specializes in sacred fire, Kelan said to her. I can't use sacred fire and I am unfamiliar with such techniques. However, I know someone who is and I have already contacted them for assistance. Until they respond, I will have you focus on strengthening your spiritual energy like Yuxiang. When she first started, Lan Yingying was unable to touch the ball, just like Yuxiang. However, after a day of training with the Qi resistance ball, Lan Yingying managed to levitate the ball an inch off the ground for 3 seconds. The next day it was Meili's turn to train. Since your lack of experience is your biggest weakness, that's what we'll be focusing on, Kelan said to her. The fastest way to gain experience was through practice, so they immediately began sparring with each other. However, even after sparring for an entire day without any breaks, Meili was not even close to landing a hit on Kelan. It felt like she was fighting a ghost, one that could anticipate all of her movements and perfectly avoid them. After spending an entire day analyzing your style, I understand why you're lacking in experience despite having 10,000 years of experience. Your fighting style is outdated, Kelan said at the end of their training. Oh, outdated? How is that even possible? Meili said. Typically, in the cultivation world, the older something is, the more valued it tends to be. This is why ancient treasures and techniques are highly sought after. Not everything improves with age. In some areas, modern knowledge surpasses the old, your fighting style being one of them. Meili was left speechless, unable to refute Kelan's point. The style she had learned was indeed ancient, dating back millions of years to when the Shi family first entered seclusion. And within such isolation, advancements tend to occur at a much slower pace. It's not going to be easy to adjust your fighting style, considering you've spent thousands of years honing it and engraving its movements into your muscle memory. But once you manage to do so, you'll see a significant increase in performance, Kelan explained. I will find you a new style that resembles your current style in a few days. We can start your real training next week. Li Jinsi showed up the next day for her training. Frankly, your techniques are impeccable and I have no criticisms there. However, it's clear that your body is struggling to keep up with your movements, Kelan said. He continued, in order to narrow the gap between your abilities and your bonus limits, you will focus on tempering your body much like Meixiu. However, you will need to push even further than her, perhaps 2 steps further. It's going to be painful, but once you've achieved a physique that can handle your abilities, your prowess will skyrocket to unimaginable levels. Will it be enough to beat Yuan? Li Jinsi suddenly asked an unexpected question. Kelan was caught off guard by such a question and didn't know how to respond for a moment. I'll be honest with you. The chances of catching up to him are near zero, much less defeating him. However, nothing is impossible in this world. With enough luck and dedication, even a cripple can even surpass a god. That's good enough for me, Li Jinsi said with an eager smile. Sometime later, Kelan spent several hours sparring with her before sending her home with a bunch of body-tempering medicine, but they were several times more potent than the ones he gave Meixiu. Chapter 1607 The Real Boot Camp. Chapter 1607 The Real Boot Camp. In the blink of an eye, several weeks have passed since Yuan entered the Primal Expanse, and his group started training with Kelan. We'll return in 3 days. Meixiu notified Kelan of their absence due to Eternal Lotus's boot camp. That's fine. Make sure to pass on my message to Yuan. Kelan nodded in acknowledgement. Of course. After logging off together, Meixiu and Yuxiang were greeted by the sound of heavenly music coming from their balcony. When they looked at the balcony, they could see Yuan playing the zither. They joined him on the balcony and waited for him to finish. Sometime later, they talked about their training with Kelan and conveyed his message. How's your training with Kelan? I haven't known him for long, but he's definitely one of the strongest people I've met. Yuan asked. It's only been a few weeks and my prowess has already increased significantly. While Manager Leah trains us through brute force and teaches us how to fight, Kelan trains us individually and focuses on our weaknesses and foundation. Yuxiang said. Meixiu nodded, agreeing with her, and said, I never thought having a proper teacher would have such drastic differences. I wouldn't be surprised if he has many disciples under him. I guess I'll have to thank him once I return. Yuan smiled. Speaking of your situation, how is it? Meixiu asked. The same as usual. We've been traveling at a speed that even I cannot comprehend without any rest, but we're still many months away from our destination. The primal expanse is unfathomably massive. Kelan has a message for you. He said that Lady Su is currently researching the primal expanse and would you like to learn as much about it as you can? He nodded. I was already planning on doing that. Although the primal expanse exists outside the 9 heavens, it is still connected to them in some way. Sometime later, the Demon Sealing faction made their way to the Eternal Lotus's residence. When they arrived, around 90% of their members were standing in a formation, waiting for their arrival. There's more people here than I expected. Wang Ming commented after he saw this. Had only expected half of them after what they experienced last time. The Eternal Lotus's members trembled after seeing Wang Ming and the others smile. Even if the majority of you quit after today, I applaud you for showing up and giving it a chance despite what you experienced during the trial. Lang said to them. What you will experience in the next 3 days will be much harsher than the trial, but you will definitely become much stronger. Wang Bingbing said. The group swallowed nervously at such words, and many of them had regretful expressions on their faces. After the introductions, they were split into smaller groups again to make training more effective. However, Yuan did not participate and only watched as a spectator. Though he would occasionally give advice to the instructor as well as the participants. The boot camp was gruesome and Spartan-like, with the participants training until they threw up or fainted. 10% of the participants gave up within an hour, and 50% gave up in just the first half of the day. By the end of the day, only 30% remained. Good job enduring today. Now you just need to endure the next 2. Wang Ming said, reminding them that the boot camp was a 3-day event. One of the participants then asked out loud, "That's physically impossible. We're all completely drained. We won't have enough energy tomorrow, much less for the remaining 2 days." Yuan stepped forward and said, "Don't worry. We have something that will not only help you with your recovery but also strengthen your body simultaneously." Really? What is it? A medicine bath, he said. There's a public hot spring available on the Dragon Spiral Mountain. I have already reserved the whole place too. A hot spring. The participants were excited upon hearing this. After giving them some time to recover enough energy to walk, they descended the mountain until they reached the lower area, where the hot spring was located. An old lady was waiting for them outside when they arrived. "Welcome to the Dragon Hot Spring, young Master Yuan." The old lady bowed to him respectfully. The hot spring was divided into 2 sections, one for males and another for females, each spacious enough to comfortably accommodate 1,000 people. As the exhausted participants submerged themselves in the medicinally enhanced waters, they felt the exhaustion swiftly drain from their bodies. Wow! What kind of magical water is this? I have never felt anything like this before. All of my exhaustion went away like smoke. How is that possible? The participants couldn't believe the hot spring's potent effect. If I had known there was a place like this here, I would have come here every day. However, Wang Bingbing said, actually this is just a normal hot spring so you wouldn't get to experience this if you come here at another time. This medicine bath was specifically prepared for you by Yuan. Meanwhile, at the male's side, Wang Ming asked, "What kind of medicine did you put in here, Yuan? I would like to bathe in this once in a while." "Medicine? I didn't put any medicine in here," he calmly said. "Huh. Then what did you put in here?" "I fused my spiritual energy with the water, so you're bathing in my spiritual energy," he revealed. "What?" Everyone there looked at him with wide eyes. "You can do such a thing with spiritual energy? I didn't know that." Lang muttered. "The concept is similar to transferring your spiritual energy to another individual to replenish their energy. However, in this case, since there isn't any method to contain the spiritual energy, you will need to constantly fuse your spiritual energy with the water, or it'll quickly lose effect. In other words, only you can do something like this," Wu Zhao said. "Once you increase your cultivation you can also do it. However, unless someone does it for you, it wouldn't benefit you," Yuan explained. Chapter 1608 The Real Boot Camp 2. Chapter 1608 The Real Boot Camp 2. The members of Eternal Lotuses soaked in the hot spring for 2 hours. By the time they emerged, not only had all traces of their exhaustion vanished, but they also felt stronger than they had at the start of the day. When they returned to their residence, those who had quit or didn't participate in the boot camp were absolutely bewildered to see them so energetic. "What the hell? Why do you all look so energetic? You spent the entire day training at their boot camp, right?" "I was only there for 4 hours, but I am still exhausted." Of course we were exhausted. However, they had us bathe in a medicine bath at the Dragon Hot Spring, relieving us of all exhaustion in just 2 hours. It not only made our exhaustion disappear, it even strengthened our bodies and boosted our cultivation. Dragon Hot Spring? There's a hot spring here? What? Such a place exists? I'm going to go bathe there right now. Since the members that bathed in Yuan's spiritual energy weren't aware of the hot spring's true nature, they didn't stop the other members from rushing to the Dragon Hot Spring. When these members arrived at the hot spring and soaked in the water, they were baffled when they were still exhausted and nothing was happening. Were they messing with us because we didn't participate in the boot camp? This is just a normal hot spring. Surely they can't be that petty. They called it a medicine bath, right? Perhaps they'd already absorbed all of the medicine. Someone there made a sound judgment. I guess the medicine bath is only a privilege for those who endured that hellish training. These members quickly left the hot spring after realizing that it had lost its healing effects, and most of them contemplated on giving the boot camp another chance. Later that night, the Demon Sealing faction had dinner together. Have you guys done any faction wars since our last one? Yuan asked them. Who would dare to send us a challenge after what you did to the fiery garden of hell? Wang Ming shook his head. The faction war scene has exploded in popularity and participation because of the formation though, Feng commented. Any movements from the 10 great families or the government? Yuan then asked. No, they have been awfully silent. However, I was told by manager Leah that there have been many people watching the Dragon Spiral Mountain. She's not doing anything about it? Yuan raised an eyebrow. She said that as long as they don't enter the Dragon Spiral Mountain or cause trouble, they have no reason to act. Sounds fair. Yuan nodded. Actually, I have something to say. Wang Xiuying suddenly raised her hand. What's the matter? I don't know if this is related, but there's been many people trying to contact me through my grandfather. Dr. Wang. Yuan frowned slightly at this news. I wouldn't think too deeply into it. After all, our exposure exploded after Yan Xiaoxiao's interview was released. Su Murong commented. Murong's right. In fact, it would be weird if nobody tried to reach out to you. Hong Xiuquan said. I guess you're right. Wang Xiuying nodded. It's never bad to be cautious, Yuan said. He continued, speaking of Dr. Wang, how is he doing lately? The same as usual, I guess. He started cultivating recently. Oh, then I will need to send him some support. Yuan said. Although it was a job, Dr. Wang looked out for him since childhood. If it weren't for Dr. Wang, he might have died before Cultivation Online came out. It's okay. I have already sent him some pills and resources to help with his cultivation. Wang Xiuying said. Still I should, trust me it's fine. Wang Xiuying interrupted. I bet you're going to give him valuable resources, correct? His cultivation is too low to even use them. You can help him once he increases his cultivation a little more, okay? If you say so. Yuan nodded. Later that night, Yuan and Meixiu spent the night together in Meixiu's old room while Yuxiang slept alone. After spending several hours passionately embracing each other, Yuan commented on her physique at the end. I can tell that you've been training really hard. Your body is incomparably sturdier than before. Huh. Is my body that hard? Meixiu began panicking, worried that Shed tempered her body too much. Yuan chuckled and said, I didn't mean literally. Your body is still very soft and pleasing to touch, so there's no need to worry. Meixiu blushed at such words. The next day, when the Demon Sealing faction arrived for the second day of boot camp, they were pleasantly surprised to find that many of the participants who had quit the previous day had returned, ready to continue their training. What happened? What made you change your heart? Shilang asked them. These returning participants explained that they were motivated to rejoin after seeing the significant improvements their peers had made after just one day of training. I'm glad to hear that you'll give it another chance, but actions speak louder than words. With that said, no matter how many times you quit, we won't stop you from returning. Wang Ming said. They started training shortly after, with the second day proving even more intense than the first. Many of those who had quit on the first day found themselves unable to withstand the increased rigor, while those who had endured the initial day's challenges barely managed to hold on through the entire session. Surprisingly, by the end of the second day, a higher number of participants completed the training compared to the first day. Although the increase was modest, it was still an impressive achievement, given the heightened intensity of the day's challenges. Soon they were rewarded by the spiritual hot spring. Wow, this is even better than I anticipated. I'm so glad I held on. One of the participants who had quit on the first day exclaimed after experiencing the hot spring. Instructor Wang, only those who have endured the training can enjoy this luxury, correct? Another asked. That's right. Those who quit won't be allowed in here. Wang Bingbing confirmed. Chapter 1609 Half a year later. Chapter 1609 Half a year later, after spending 2 hours at the Dragon Hot Spring, everyone returned to their living quarters. Only 2 days have passed since they started training, but the members of Eternal Lotuses who didn't quit were already experiencing tremendous growth. All had at least 2 breakthroughs, while some even had 4 breakthroughs. As for those who had stopped training on the first day but returned on the second day, they had at least 1 breakthrough. The rest of the Eternal Lotuses were envious of their exponential growth and contemplated returning to training. Later that night, Yuan spent the rest of the night with Chu Liuxiang. Is the Primal Expanse a dangerous place? Chu Liuxiang asked at the end of their passionate session, which lasted for hours. Yes, it's a gruesome place where only the strong survive. Doesn't that apply to our world as well? It's much more so over there where humans don't exist. When humans want something, the normal ones will negotiate for it. However, according to what I was told, they forcefully acquire everything in the Primal Expanse. It's a place where laws don't exist and the strong rules over the weak. The law of the jungle, huh? I guess that makes sense since it's a world of beasts. Be safe over there. Yuan smiled and said, unless my immortal monarch's dominion doesn't work on the beasts there, I should be relatively safe no matter what I am up against. I also have an expert guiding me. He had been curious whether the immortal monarch's dominion would affect the beasts in the Primal Expanse, but he hadn't yet had the opportunity to test it. The following day, even more participants showed up at the boot camp than on the second day. However, as many had expected, the third day of boot camp was even more torturous than the previous 2 days combined. Every single participant had either puked or lost consciousness at least once. Fortunately for them, the training ended earlier than anticipated, and they were rewarded with a 4-hour spiritual bath. Good work, everyone. Welcome back next month for the next boot camp session. The next day, everyone from the Demon Sealing faction except Feng and Yuan went to the mountain's peak to train with Leah. Where have the 3 of you been lately? You haven't been showing up to training. Leah asked Meixiu, Chu Liuxiang, and Li Jinxi, who had spent most of their time training with Kelan. Meixiu explained the situation to Leah, who said afterward, I understand. Let me see how much you've improved through your new trainer. If it's good enough, you won't need to attend my training any longer. The following hour, Meixiu and the other 2 had a sparring session with Leah, who was quickly surprised by their drastic improvements. Heavens! Who's training them? They've improved so much that they're almost unrecognizable. Wang Ming exclaimed. In just a month, Meixiu and Chu Liuxiang, who had consistently ranked at the bottom, experienced a dramatic rise, propelling them to the top of their power ranking. Meanwhile, Li Jinxi, who was already at the pinnacle of the rankings, found her lead expanding even further as the gap between her and the others became more pronounced. Who's your teacher? Leah asked them afterward. He's Yuan's bodyguard. We're being trained by him while Yuan is away, Chu Liuxiang explained. Yuan has a bodyguard? Leah raised her eyebrows at this information. She never expected someone as monstrous as him would need protection. It's a little complicated. Whatever, I don't really care. Anyway, the 3 of you no longer need to attend my training since that person is much more capable than me. Leah said a moment later. Yes, thank you for everything so far. They bowed to her. Shit, we really need to ascend to the 4th heaven and train with them now. Wang Ming muttered out loud. Hearing this, Leah turned to him and said, that's actually a great idea. Not only would you improve faster with that person, but I would no longer need to waste my time training you. Although it may seem like Leah was upset, she genuinely wanted the best for them. Meanwhile, Yuan continued his journey with Yingzi. My body is feeling sore. Yingzi suddenly said as she slowed down. Seeing this, Yuan retrieved a meat skewer and handed it to her without uttering a single word. Yingzi accepted his offering and immediately continued their journey, acting as though the soreness magically disappeared. This was Yingzi's way of asking for more food, and she would do it once a week, so it wasn't anything new to Yuan. Fortunately, I have an immense stock of meat skewers due to Shimei's eating habits. Yuan thought to himself. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and it was already time for the Eternal Lotus's second boot camp. During this month, Yuan spent most of his time doing mental training since it was pointless for him to improve his cultivation normally. Meixiu and the others had become celebrities within the Grand Mystic sect, recognized by the disciples as the 5 ethereal fairies. Whenever they trained with Kelan on the training grounds, a crowd of spectators would gather, cheering them on enthusiastically. Their beauty and diligence had captivated the hearts of many young disciples, drawing attention from even the top disciples within the sect. However, no matter who approached them, they consistently shut down any advances. Due to disturbances caused by a few troublemakers and the increasingly rowdy crowd at the training ground, sect leader Du Daomi took decisive action. He restricted access to the training ground and forbade any disciple from disturbing the group, threatening expulsion for those who defied the order. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed and it was time for the second boot camp. The Demon Sealing faction spent 3 days training the members of Eternal Lotuses and returned to their daily routine. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, half a year has passed since Yuan entered the Primal Expanse. We're almost there. Yingzi notified Yuan as they reached the end of their 6-month-long journey. Chapter 1610 Supreme Ox's Territory. Chapter 1610 Supreme Ox's Territory. After traveling for another 2 weeks, Yingzi suddenly stopped moving and said, "We're at the Supreme Ox's territory." Finally, after almost 7 months, Yuan stretched his body. Since he had to attend boot camp 3 days every month, it extended their trip slightly. Yingzi remained still even many moments later, prompting Yuan to ask, "What's the matter?" "What do you mean?" she asked. "Why aren't you moving?" He clarified. "I do not have a good relationship with the Supreme Ox, so my presence there will only make things difficult. You will have to meet him yourself," she explained. "How strong is this Supreme Ox?" "His cultivation is at perfect chaotic immortal." "Sorry, but I am not familiar with your cultivation system." Yuan proceeded to explain Nine Heavens' cultivation system to her. After taking a few minutes to comprehend Nine Heavens' cultivation system and comparing it to the Primal Expanse's cultivation system, she began explaining it to Yuan. The Primal Expanse had 10 major cultivation realms, each divided into 4 minor realms: early, intermediate, advanced, and perfect. The major realm consisted of Chaotic Establishment, Chaotic Adept, Chaotic Master, Chaotic Commander, Chaotic King, Chaotic Emperor, Chaotic Overlord, Chaotic Immortal, Chaotic Supreme, and Chaotic God. The strength of a perfect Chaotic Immortal was akin to a peak-level Golden Immortal, but that was only pure speculation. Unless 2 fights with such cultivation collided, there was really no method of finding out. Equal to a peak-level Golden Immortal, huh? I won't be able to defeat them if we were to fight for whatever reason suddenly, and I don't want to expose my trump card so soon. Although Yuan trusted Yingzi to a certain extent, he couldn't completely trust her at this moment, and he was confident that she would be watching him, so he didn't want to use Immortal Monarch's dominion and reveal it to her just in case he needed it for her. He turned to look at Yingzi and spoke. "Yingzi, as you can probably tell, my cultivation is a little lacking. If this Supreme Ox were to attack me for whatever reason, I'd die for sure. If that happens, can I count on you to protect me?" "Of course I will compensate you." Yingzi pondered for a moment before sticking out her hand, with 3 fingers raised. "What is that?" Yuan asked. 300 meat skewers. "If you can provide me with that, I will guarantee your safety," she calmly said. "It's a deal," he immediately agreed. He'd be willing to exchange 3 million meat skewers for his life, much less 300. To further improve their relationship, Yuan gave her 10 skewers as a down payment. "Why are you giving me them?" she asked. "They'll give you 10 now and the rest if you protect me. We call this a down payment in our world." "What if I don't need to protect you? Will I have to give them back to you?" Yingzi asked. "You can keep the 10 skewers even if nothing happens to me." Yingzi nodded and immediately began eating the meat skewers since she didn't have to return them. Meanwhile, Yuan ventured into the Supreme Ox's territory. This domain was a vast, rocky plain, offering a stark contrast to the environment of the Sword-Head Serpent's territory. Furthermore, the gravity in this region was significantly altered, being 10 times heavier than usual, adding an extra layer of challenge to navigating the area. The Supreme Ox's territory spanned 10,000 miles, a vast expanse that could easily bewilder anyone from Earth. However, Yuan was guided by Yingzi's directions through divine sense, ensuring that he wouldn't lose his way. As Yuan traveled across the rocky plains of the Supreme Ox's territory, he observed many primals roaming the area. Most of these creatures were around the level of a divine warrior, equivalent to what would be called an intermediate chaotic master in their world. 2 days into his journey, Yuan spotted a massive mountain in the distance. In the Primal Expanse, the sky was positioned much higher than in the 9 heavens, towering several times higher, yet this colossal mountain nearly grazed these lofty heights. Moreover, the side of this mountain bore an impressive engraving of an axe-shaped symbol. Once Yuan approached a certain proximity, a domineering voice resonated through the air, carrying an authoritative echo. "Halt, intruder." Yuan halted immediately, and he could see a silhouette descending towards him from the direction of the mountain. This individual possessed a bulky physique similar to that of a human, with 2 arms and 2 legs, but its head was distinctly that of an ox. The ox raised an eyebrow after examining Yuan closely. "Are you really a dragon? You smell like one, but your cultivation is. What does my cultivation have to do with my bloodline? Or you, anyway?" Yuan said. "I am the captain of the Supreme Ox's Axe Squad. Why have you entered our territory? I'd like to speak with the Supreme Ox." The captain narrowed his eyes at Yuan, seemingly pondering something. After a moment of silence he said, "I understand. I will bring you to the Supreme Ox now." That was too easy. Yuan thought inwardly. The ease with which they permitted him to meet their leader seemed suspiciously straightforward, prompting him to question if there were any ulterior motives behind their accommodating behavior. Is it because I am a dragon? Regardless of what they were up to, with Ingzi protecting him, Yuan had no need to worry and followed the captain. Sometime later they reached the peak of the mountain, where a large throne made of bones was situated at the center, commanding a view of the surrounding landscape. However, sitting on the throne was an ugly middle-aged man with unnatural facial features so unsettling they could scare even ghosts. Yuan's eyebrows twitched upon seeing this middle-aged man, who was easily the most unattractive individual he had ever encountered. "Supreme Ox, you have a visitor." The captain kneeled before the Supreme Ox and said. The middle-aged man, who had been staring at Yuan long before they even arrived at the mountain, spoke with a mysterious smile on his face. "What brought you to my territory, young dragon?" Chapter 16:11 Appearances. Chapter 16:11 Appearances. The Supreme Ox's gaze felt unsettling to Yuan. It carried a mixture of craving and shock, leaving Yuan puzzled about the reason behind such an intense stare. However, he decided to ignore it for now and answered the Supreme Ox's question. "I am looking for a method to leave this world, and I was told you might know the method." "Huh?" The Supreme Ox's eyebrows raised in a puzzled manner. "Putting your request aside, who told you that I would know such a thing?" Knowing that Ingzi and the Supreme Ox weren't on good terms, Yuan refrained from mentioning her before him. "Some predator I met by chance. I never got to learn his identity, unfortunately." Supreme Ox shook his head and said, "I don't have the slightest clue to what you're talking about. However, I may know someone who might." Yuan was left speechless. After spending half a year traveling to this location, he discovered that the Supreme Ox knew nothing significant, and now the Supreme Ox was echoing the same information Ingzi had given him. Am I being scammed here? He couldn't help but wonder inwardly. Who might this individual be? Yuan eventually asked. Slow down, young dragon. You may carry the bloodline of dragons, but that doesn't mean you can make free requests in my territory. I will provide you with the information you seek if you're willing to do me a favor. What is this favor? It's quite simple. Allow me to let me borrow your appearance for 10,000 years. Huh? Yuan was bewildered by such an odd favor. Since you're a dragon, I'm sure you have no lack of beautiful appearances like the one you're currently wearing, so lend it to me for a bit. Don't be stingy, it's only 10,000 years. Yuan's eyes widened at the Supreme Ox's weird wording. No lack of appearances? Like the one I'm wearing? What nonsense is this? Why do you want my appearance? Yuan decided to ask. Are you seriously asking me that? Look at me. I'm heinous compared to you. Yuan was speechless. At this moment, Yingzi's voice resounded inside his head, in the primal expanse, due to a lack of humans and our understanding of them, primals like trading appearances. How does that even work? Are you asking me to take off my skin like we do with clothes? We can't do that. It's not like that. If you agree to let the Supreme Ox borrow your appearance, he will simply copy your appearance and use it for himself. Also, you won't be allowed to use your appearance for 10,000 years if you agree. Why would they choose to borrow appearances? Can't they simply craft their own, tailored to their liking? He struggled to grasp the rationale behind adopting another's visage when the possibility of creating a unique one existed. That's easier said than done. With a lack of humans, there are only so many authentic appearances to go around. Also, it is an unspoken rule to never copy another's appearance without permission, even if you change some of the features. Once Yuan thought about it, Ingzi was right. Even humans would have difficulties if told to create a human appearance without any reference, since it cannot resemble another's appearance too much less the beasts within primal expanse, where humans don't exist. How valuable are appearances in this world? Yuan continued asking. It greatly varies depending on the available features. Of course, the good-looking ones will be worth more. I have never seen anyone with your quality of appearance, so it should be worth a fortune. Ingzi said. Thanks for the information. What's wrong, young dragon? Why aren't you saying anything? Supreme Ox asked with a nervous smile on his face. Seeing this, Yuan smiled coldly and said, You want to borrow my appearance in exchange for some information that may not even be reliable? Are you looking down on me, Supreme Ox? The Supreme Ox sucked his teeth after hearing Yuan's words. He was clearly trying to take advantage of Yuan due to his seemingly young age and low cultivation base. Fine. I won't ask to borrow it, but allow me to use your appearance as a reference at the very least. You're still asking for too much. Yuan shook his head. Supreme Ox frowned and muttered in a cold voice, Don't try to push your luck too far, young dragon. The other predators may be afraid of the dragon bloodline, but we don't fear you. The atmosphere suddenly stiffened, and Yuan could sense many powerful entities in the vicinity announcing their presence, almost as if they were threatening him. Yuan remained calm and said, Are you sure you want to threaten me? You might have to spend the rest of your life in that appearance. Before the Supreme Ox could speak, Yuan continued, I was going to say that while my appearance isn't for sale or rent, I have plenty of high-quality appearances available, but if you don't want them, that's fine. As someone with countless encounters with humans, he had an unlimited supply of human appearances to bargain with in this primal expanse. Wait. Supreme Ox quickly said. He raised his hand and made a gesture. In the following moment, all of the surrounding presences disappeared. I apologize for my subordinates' unruly behavior. They are too easily agitated. Anyway, what other appearances do you have? May I see them? Yuan retrieved an appearance-altering pill and swallowed it, transforming himself into a middle-aged man with somewhat handsome features. Supreme Ox's face brightened with excitement the moment he saw Yuan's disguise, even standing up from his seat. That one. I want that one. He hastily said. 10,000, no 7,000 years. I'll give you the information if you will lend it to me for 7,000 years. Yuan calmly nodded, Deal. The Supreme Ox didn't waste any time and immediately copied every little detail of Yuan's new appearance, taking it for himself. Chapter 1612 Snowy Fox Mountain. Chapter 1612 Snowy Fox Mountain. After the transaction, Yuan returned to his original appearance and asked, So, who is this individual who might have the information I want? The Supreme Ox, now with a pleasing to their eyes appearance, spoke with a satisfied smile. The divine fox of grand prophecy is known to have knowledge that surpasses every predator in the primal expanse. If she doesn't have the information you need, I'm afraid that nobody else in the primal expanse does. Where can I find this divine fox? The Mystic Valley, but unless the divine fox of grand prophecy wants to see you, it's almost impossible to find her. Sounds a bit troublesome, but I'll figure it out when I get there. Thank you for the information. By the way, which dragon tribe are you from? The Supreme Ox suddenly asked. That's a secret. Is that so? Then keep your secrets. A moment later, a small figure appeared before Yuan like a ghost. Who the hell are you? The Supreme Ox was startled by Yingzi's sudden appearance, looking like he couldn't believe he didn't notice her presence until she stood right before him. No, even with my eyes directly on her, I cannot sense her presence. This ghost-like presence, she must be, Shadow Dweller. What are you doing in my territory? And that appearance, where did you acquire such a high-quality appearance? Shadow Dweller? Yuan raised an eyebrow at this familiar name. He turned to look at Ingzi, who turned out to have the same bloodline as one of the 9 Divine Supremes. Are you trying to start another bloodbath in my territory? The Supreme Ox roared, and the presences that appeared to threaten Yuan returned, but there were significantly more this time. Don't mind me. I'm only here as that guy's travel guide. Ingzi remained calm despite the many threatening presences surrounding them and pointed at Yuan with her gaze. Travel guide? You. The Supreme Ox couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could an entity like her become a guide for someone else, even if that individual was a dragon? Are you ready to go to the Mystic Valley? She asked Yuan the next moment. How far away is the Mystic Valley from this place? Ingzi pondered for a moment before responding, 50 years, give or take. You can't be serious. Yuan was left absolutely gobsmacked by the ridiculous distance. He thought half a year was already bad enough, but 50 years? That's too long, he cried out loud. Seeing an opportunity to earn more appearances, the Supreme Ox said, I know of a way to get to the Mystic Valley in 6 months. Oh. Yuan turned to look at him with a hopeful gaze. There's a natural space tunnel that will take you to the snowy Fox Mountain, which is around 6 months away from the Mystic Valley. I can get you there in 2 months, Ingzi then said. As for the location of this space tunnel, the Supreme Ox spoke with a suggestive smile. Yuan immediately realized what the Supreme Ox was thinking, smiled back and said, not just 7,000 years. They'll let you keep that appearance permanently. Deal? It's a deal. The Supreme Ox excitedly agreed. The Supreme Ox proceeded to retrieve a medallion made from a piece of bone and tossed it to Yuan. Since the space tunnel is within my territory, you will need to show that to the guards there. He turned to look at one of his minions and said, bring them to the space tunnel. As you command, Supreme Ox. The minion acknowledged with its head lowered. Yuan left the mountain to follow the guide shortly later. They arrived at their location 3 days later. The space tunnel appeared to be an ordinary cave at a glance, but Yuan's divine sense told a different story. There were 2 ox guards standing outside this cave, and they glared at Yuan and Ingzi as they approached. The Supreme Ox has given them permission to use the space tunnel. The ox minion explained. Yuan showed the bone medallion to the guards, who took it and examined it. Very well, you may enter. Yuan and Ingzi entered the cave the next moment while the ox minion stayed behind. Just keep walking until you exit the other side, the ox guard said. The cave was dimly illuminated by the mysterious purple rocks sticking out of the walls around them. There was also a weird energy that filled the cave. This energy felt similar to the energy from teleport formations that Yuan was familiar with, but it was slightly different, and it only got more intense as they walked deeper into the cave. After walking for several days straight, Yuan could finally see the end of the cave. His steps hastened as they approached the glowing white light. When they finally exited the cave, Yuan was greeted by a white mountain range and snow so deep it reached his waist. As for Ingzi, her entire body was submerged in snow, leaving only her head visible. 50 meat skewers, Ingzi suddenly said. Traveling in this terrain is a pain, so it will cost you more. Sure. Do you want them now or later? The skewers will quickly get cold in this weather. If he didn't protect his body with spiritual energy, the intense cold would easily freeze it within seconds. But even with his body protected, it was still freezing cold. I can't recall the last time I felt this cold. Cultivators can regulate their body temperature using spiritual energy, ensuring comfort even if they stand naked in a snowstorm. However, this ability can be challenged under extreme conditions that are too severe for their energy to suppress. Moreover, the snow in this area seemed to possess a unique trait that drains spiritual energy, making it even more challenging for Yuan to maintain a steady body temperature. You can give them to me later, she said. All right. Ingzi picked up Yuan and flew toward the Mystic Valley shortly later. Chapter 16:13 Shadow Dweller. Chapter 16:13 Shadow Dweller. As they ventured deeper into snowy Fox Mountain, a fierce blizzard raged around them. The harsh conditions didn't affect Yuan, but he could sense the relentless blizzard gradually chipping away Yingzi's energy that protected them from the blizzard. Fortunately, Ingzi was able to replenish her energy faster than it was being depleted, averting what could have been a perilous situation. Ingzi, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of predator are shadow dwellers? Yuan suddenly asked this question that had been on his mind since it was revealed to him that she was one. What do you mean? Can you be more specific? You know how the sword-head serpent is a snake and the Supreme Ox is an ox. What about shadow dwellers? If you're asking about my shape, we don't really have one. We can become any shape or size just like shadows. A shape-shifting beast? Yuan tried to imagine her true form, but the closest image he could conjure was that of the shadow monster's head seen on television. An entity devoid of any distinct features, merely a shadowy figure resembling a silhouette. We dwell in the shadow, hunt with shadows and traverse through shadows. We are the pinnacle of hunters, at least that's what the others say. Sounds like a species that prefers living in isolation, Yuan commented. It's true. Shadow dwellers rarely show themselves. I, however, am an exception. I prefer traversing the world and experiencing new things. That's probably why I am considered an outcast, Ingzi casually remarked. Despite calling herself an outcast, Ingzi didn't sound dispirited or saddened, almost as if she was completely fine with it. Tell me about your world, this 9 heavens. Ingzi suddenly said. Yuan nodded and recalled some of his experiences in the 9 heavens with her. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Halfway through their journey, in the midst of Yuan's mental meditation, a voice suddenly rippled loudly throughout the snowy Fox Mountain. This voice carried a profound power that had the ability to stop the blizzard. Ingzi stopped moving after hearing this voice, and she warned Yuan, the owner of this territory will be here shortly. The moment Ingzi finished her sentence, and before Yuan could even respond, a white-haired woman wearing white robes appeared before them. You may be a dragon, but how dare you trespass into my territory without permission? Are you looking for death? The woman spoke in a bold tone. At a glance, the aura exuded by this woman was slightly stronger than the Supreme Ox. There are 2 of you? The woman's eyes widened with surprise after realizing that Shed failed to sense Yingzi's presence. I apologize for entering your territory, but we don't have any business with you or this place. We're just trying to reach the Mystic Valley. Yuan explained the situation to her. I don't care what you're doing or where you're going. It doesn't change the fact that you're trespassing into my territory, she sneered. Are entering another's territory usually such a big deal? Yuan asked Ingzi through divine sense. It varies from individual to individual, but it's usually considered rude to enter another's territory without permission. This only applies to predators though. Primals have no intelligence, so we can't really blame them for trespassing. They're also considered a source of food and power for predators, so they're more than welcome to trespass. After taking a quick moment to ponder a way out of this, Yuan spoke. Is there anything we can do to make it up to you? Would a high-quality appearance be good enough? Why, are you bribing me? The woman wore a bewildered expression on her ordinary face. Killing intent surged from her the following moment. I don't care who you are or what you have to offer. Nobody bribes me. Noticing the woman was preparing to strike, Yuan quickly swallowed an appearance-altering pill and transformed himself into a beautiful woman. He also ensured the appearance had white hair, reflecting the woman's current appearance. The woman, previously trembling with anger, suddenly froze. Her enraged expression shifted to one of bewilderment, as if she had just witnessed a miracle. Why are you willing to give me that appearance? She asked in a low voice. Yuan nodded and said, if you're willing to overlook our trespass and let us continue our journey without any further issues, he'll let you keep it. The woman lowered her head to hide her face while she pondered whether she should accept his offer. If I accept his offer, my pride will. Forget it. I must get my hands on that appearance no matter the cost. It didn't take long for the woman to make up her mind. It's a deal. She swiftly mimicked Yuan's appearance and then flew away immediately afterward, not uttering another word. They continued their journey shortly later, and the blizzard never returned. After another month, they finally arrived at their destination. Before reaching the Mystic Valley, they had to cross an ocean whose surface suddenly began to glow, casting a shimmering light across the expansive waters. So this is the Mystic Valley, huh? It's a beautiful place. Yuan commented after seeing the glamorous scenery before him. The Mystic Valley was draped in blue and purple trees, lending the area an exotic ambience. Additionally, these trees bore glowing fruits that illuminated the entire valley, casting a light reminiscent of street stalls glowing softly in the night. Moreover, a long river that flowed into the glowing ocean bisected the valley, contributing to its mystical atmosphere. The water in this river also glowed, further enhancing the otherworldly aura of the place. Do you know where we can find the divine fox of grand prophecy? Yuan asked Ingzi after he finished admiring the place. Ingzi shook her head and replied, no, but the Mystic Valley is a relatively small place, and one could fully explore it in just a few months. If we search every nook and cranny, we should eventually find her. Chapter 16:14 Mystic Valley. Chapter 16:14 Mystic Valley. Shortly after their arrival, Yuan and Ingzi started looking around the Mystic Valley, using their eyes and divine sense to search for the divine fox of grand prophecy. I want 5 meat skewers now. Ingzi extended her hand and said. Yuan acknowledged her request and retrieved 5 skewers before giving them to her. The moment the meat skewers emerged from his spatial ring, releasing their unique aroma into the air, all of the primals within a 100-mile radius detected the scent and charged in their direction. Sensing the incoming danger, Ingzi released a burst of her aura. The instant the primals detected her powerful presence, they abruptly turned and fled in the opposite direction, not halting their frantic escape even hundreds of miles later. This was Yuan's first time experiencing Yingzi's presence. It was chaotic and unlike anything he had previously encountered. There was something fundamentally different about the beasts in the primal expanse compared to those in the nine heavens. Is this due to the chaotic essence that they absorb? Yuan wondered how it would affect his body if he cultivated chaotic essence, but he was reluctant to try as it could harm his body. Over the following weeks, Yuan and Yingzi methodically traversed the Mystic Valley. Throughout this journey, they encountered numerous species of primals, none of which Yuan recognized. Most of the primal strength ranged between Spirit King and Divine Ancestor, with a few having the strength of an Immortal. However, regardless of their strength, not many approached them, primarily due to Yuan's dragon scent. The few who dared to approach them were instantly scared away when they saw Yingzi, so their journey was relatively peaceful. One day Yuan halted abruptly when a unique glow caught the corner of his eye. Turning his attention to the source, he discovered it was a glowing purple mushroom nestled among the branches of a nearby tree. Intrigued by its luminous appearance, he moved closer for a better look. "Do you know what this is?" Yuan asked Yingzi, who stared at it from a distance, seemingly unwilling to get closer to it for whatever reason. "That is a primal bane. It contains a tremendous amount of chaotic essence, but it's also extremely poisonous. Just its scent alone could kill," she explained. "Is that why I don't sense any primals in this area? Are you okay?" he asked her. Yingzi replied, "I am not weak enough to be killed by its scent, but I dislike its smell. More importantly, how are you fine?" Yuan shrugged and said, "I'm not sure, but I don't think it's poisonous for me. After all, I can feel my cultivation rising just by being near it." He proceeded to pick the mushroom, which was the size of an apple. "Are all humans as reckless as you?" Yingzi asked with raised eyebrows. Yuan chuckled and said, "I can't speak for all humans, but I am definitely not as reckless as you think." Yuan examined the primal bane in finer detail once it was in his hands. After staring at it for several minutes, Yuan suddenly opened his mouth and tossed the glowing mushroom inside. Yingzi was taken aback by Yuan's actions. However, her immediate concern wasn't for his safety but rather the prospect of not receiving any more meat skewers if something were to happen to him. As Yuan bit into the glowing mushroom, it released a sweet nectar that tingled his taste buds and offered a surprising burst of flavor. Not only did Yuan gain poison resistance from the mushroom, but he also experienced 3 consecutive breakthroughs in his cultivation despite the Celestial Emperor's curse, which was a pleasant surprise. Yingzi's eyes widened slightly as she witnessed these events, leading her to ponder whether Yuan's human nature made him unique, or if there was something inherently special about him. "This primal bane is great. Do you see any more around here?" Yuan turned to Yingzi and asked. Although she was speechless, Yingzi still used her divine sense to search for more primal banes. A few moments later she said, "There's another one about 2 days away." "Great. Let me eat that one too." 2 days later Yuan tossed the second primal bane into his mouth. He only managed to break through once this time around, but he still felt it was worth it. As they continued to look for the divine fox of grand prophecy, Yuan also kept an eye out for more primal banes or anything that seemed like it would strengthen him. A week later, Yingzi suddenly descended toward the glowing river. With a swift hand gesture, she raised an azure-colored flower from the water and hovered it before Yuan. "This is a luminous aquatic lily. It's poisonous enough to instantaneously kill a chaotic overlord. They'll give it to you for 100 meat skewers," she said. Yuan stared at the beautiful flower that glowed even brighter than the primal bane and swallowed nervously. "Young master, that's the sacred ocean lily." Yuning's shocked voice suddenly resounded. "You recognize this treasure?" he inquired. "Of course. It's an extremely rare treasure that can only be found in the Azure Dragon Clan's territory, deep within the Azure Ocean. It's said to grant one immunity to poison," Yuning explained. "Immunity to poison, huh? All right, it's a deal," Yuan said to Yingzi the next moment. "This is safe to consume, right?" Yuan asked for confirmation from Yuning. "You're asking that now, after you ate that weird mushroom even though you knew it was poisonous?" she said in a dumbfounded voice. "Anyway, yes, it's poisonous and can only be safely consumed if taken with Saint Dew, which neutralizes the poison when consumed together." Chapter 16:15 Luminous Aquatic Lily. Chapter 16:15 Luminous Aquatic Lily. With a pondering face, Yuan stared at the luminous aquatic lily, also known as the sacred ocean lily in the 9 heavens. Despite Yuning's confirmation that it was poisonous, He had supreme poison resistance, and he managed to consume the primal bane without any resistance. I cannot rely on Yingzi forever since I only had a limited amount of skewers left to use on her. Moreover, I don't feel any sense of dread from it. He considered whether to consume the luminous aquatic lily immediately or wait until he had obtained the Saint Dew to safely neutralize its poisonous effects. Aren't you going to eat it? Yingzi suddenly asked him. After hearing Yingzi's words, Yuan quickly made up his mind. Without any hesitation, he tossed the entire flower into his mouth the very next second. Young master! Yuning exclaimed in a shocked voice after seeing his actions. Shed just told him that it was poisonous, so why would he do something so foolish? Upon consuming the luminous aquatic lily, Yuan felt an immense burst of energy surge through his body, so powerful that it threatened to cause his body to explode. Recognizing the urgency, he quickly found a place to sit down and focus on cultivating to control the overwhelming energy. Since the luminous aquatic lily had thrived in an environment rich with chaotic essence, consuming it began to alter Yuan's aura. Gradually, his aura grew more chaotic, beginning to resemble that of the residents of the primal expanse, marking a significant transformation in his energy. Although the primal bane also contained a lot of chaotic essence, it was not enough to affect Yuan. The luminous aquatic lily, however, was at least 50 times more potent than the primal bane. Yuan's cultivation soared in the following moments. In the blink of an eye, Yuan's cultivation base surged to the peak of the Spirit Emperor level, then began to stabilize. Over the following hours, his cultivation slowly advanced, inching closer to the threshold of Spirit Sovereign. A day after Yuan consumed the luminous aquatic lily, his aura, which had been tranquil for some time, suddenly skyrocketed. Ding. Quest, Chaotic Heart. Difficulty, Hard. Quest description, consume chaotic essence and complete your chaotic heart. Progress, 10%. Reward, chaotic heart. Yuan stared at the quest with wide eyes. Congratulations on your breakthrough, young master. Yuning's dumbfounded voice snapped him out of his daze. He turned to look at Yingzi and asked, "What's a chaotic heart?" "That's what we have and need to cultivate," she calmly responded. Her eyes suddenly narrowed as she fixed an intense stare at him. "I can sense a chaotic heart, one that didn't exist before, within you. However, it doesn't seem complete. How is that possible?" she muttered in a dazed voice. The residents of the primal expanse are naturally born with a chaotic heart, so nobody knew it could be created, in a human, much less. "What did you do?" Yingzi asked him a moment later. "Besides consuming the luminous aquatic lily, nothing really. I think it's because I consumed a large amount of chaotic essence which I am not used to," he said. Yingzi wore a pondering expression on her face, but she didn't say anything else. "Give me a few more hours. I want to try something." Yuan closed his eyes again and began cultivating. 6 hours later, his progress increased by a single %. "At this rate, I will need to cultivate for 23 days to complete the chaotic heart. I need 23 days to complete my chaotic heart. Can you wait a little for me?" Yuan asked Yingzi, who calmly nodded. Once Yuan returned to his cultivation, Yingzi sat beside him and watched him slowly form his chaotic heart. However, Yuan emerged from his cultivation only a week later. "This won't work. My progress slowed down significantly after reaching 20%. I will need to consume treasures if I want any decent progress." He should have gained 28% in the last week, but he only managed to achieve an increase of 9%. He reached 20% overall progress on the second day but failed to make any further progress in the subsequent days. "What's wrong?" Yingzi asked when she noticed had suddenly stopped cultivating. "There were some errors in my calculations. It seems the requirements increase as I get closer to completing the chaotic heart," Yuan sighed out loud. "At this rate, I don't know how long it will take me to finish it. I will need to consume more treasures containing chaotic essence if I want to complete my chaotic heart anytime soon." "Treasures, right? I can find them for you, but in exchange. You want meat skewers, right?" She nodded. "All right." They returned to looking for the divine fox of grand prophecy shortly after. As they continued to search the Mystic Valley, Yingzi would occasionally bring Yuan treasures rich with chaotic essence. While these treasures were not as potent as the primal bane, much less the luminous aquatic lily, it was still enough to progress his chaotic heart. Chapter 16:16 Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy. Chapter 16:16 Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy. A month has passed since Yuan consumed the luminous aquatic lily. During this time, Het consumed numerous treasures while searching for the divine fox of grand prophecy. His progress with the chaotic heart had reached 50%, but his cultivation hadn't increased even slightly due to the chaotic heart absorbing all of the chaotic essence. Most of the treasures were acquired by Yingzi, and in exchange for them, Yuan had to give her several hundred meat skewers. Will my supply last until I can create my chaotic heart? Yuan wondered inwardly as he checked his swiftly declining stock of meat skewers. He had only about 5,000 meat skewers left, which might seem plentiful, but given Yingzi's rapid consumption rate, his supply could be depleted within a year. We've searched the entire Mystic Valley, Yingzi suddenly announced. Is it possible the divine fox of grand prophecy isn't in her own territory? Yuan asked. There is a chance she isn't home, but we won't know for sure unless we burn down this whole place to draw her out. Yuan looked at Yingzi with wide eyes, clearly surprised by her savage suggestion. It won't take much effort or time, Yingzi said, misunderstanding his feelings. Before Yuan could respond, a new voice echoed through the air. I knew my Mystic Valley would be receiving some special visitors, but alas, what a disappointment. How dare you even speak of destroying my beautiful territory? The tone was stern, filled with a mixture of anger and disappointment. A formidable presence suddenly enveloped the area, and Yuan caught a glimpse of a silhouette in the corner of his eye, prompting him to swiftly turn his head toward the source. Standing atop an enormous boulder in the distance was a majestic azure-colored fox with golden eyes and purple patterns across its body. Its four tails fluttered gracefully behind it, adding to its ethereal presence. This golden fox possessed a cultivation level that was at least 2 to 3 tiers higher than both the Supreme Ox and the woman Yuan had encountered in the Snowy Fox Mountain, and it exuded a fierce holy aura, almost as if it was a divine being from heaven. Are you the divine fox of grand prophecy? Yuan asked despite knowing the answer. That's right. Who's asking? She responded, her voice tinged with a mix of pride and arrogance. Hello. My name is Yuan and I came here for your help. My help? That's a good joke, considering you were just talking about destroying my territory to lure me out, she coldly sneered. What? I'm sure she was just joking out of frustration since we couldn't find you even after searching the whole Mystic Valley. The divine fox of grand prophecy narrowed her eyes and sneered. Yes, I saw how you stole and consumed all of the treasures in my territory. Yuan's eyes widened at her accusation. It had never occurred to him that gathering natural treasures in the wild could be considered stealing. Unbeknownst to him, in the primal expanse, once an individual claimed a territory, everything within it was considered their possession. Thus, taking anything from that territory was viewed as stealing. To tell you the truth, I'm not from around here, so I don't know your rules. I apologize if I offended you, and if there's any way I can compensate you, don't hesitate to let me know. The divine fox of grand prophecy fell silent after hearing his words. Eventually she said, If you wish to compensate me, then give me those meat sticks you have been giving that shadow dweller. Of course. How many do you want? All of it, she responded without hesitation. That's. However, before Yuan could even formulate a response, immense killing intent suddenly surged from Yingzi's small frame, enveloping the entire Mystic Valley in an instant. Don't push your luck too far, divine fox, she growled in a shivering tone. Despite the intense atmosphere, the divine fox neither fled nor showed any signs of fear, standing firm and composed. In stark contrast, the nearby Primal scrambled away in terror, visibly shaken to their core, even pissing themselves while they fled. What? You want to go at it? I'm not afraid of you. The divine fox sneered, her posture oozing with confidence for some reason. We didn't come here to fight you. Also, I would give you all of my meat skewers if I could, but as you can see, it will only lead to an even bigger problem, so I will refrain from doing so. Yuan sighed. How about 500 meat skewers? After a moment of silence, the divine fox nodded. Fine. They'll forgive you for 500 of those meat sticks. Yuan immediately retrieved 500 meat skewers and offered them to the divine fox, who started eating them the moment it was in her grasp. Oh my, what a unique flavor. I have never tasted anything like this before. What kind of primal meat is this? Exclaimed the divine fox, her entire body trembling with joy as she savored the meat skewers, clearly delighted by the unfamiliar and exquisite taste. I can tell you if you answer one of my questions. Yuan saw this opportunity and said, There is almost nothing I don't know. What do you want to know? A method of leaving this world, he said. The divine fox stopped chewing on the meat skewers and stared at him in silence, her thoughts unknown. Sometime later, she quickly chewed her food and swallowed before speaking in a calm voice. As I thought, you're not from this world. How can you tell? Yuan asked out of curiosity. How can I not after watching you for the last several weeks? Not only do you lack common sense but you also lack a chaotic heart. Are you even a dragon or a human disguised as one? It's been a few million years since we've had a visitor from the other side. Yuan smiled inwardly after observing the divine fox's knowledgeable demeanor, hopeful that she might possess the information he needed to return to the Nine Heavens. Chapter 16-17 Primal Monarch. Chapter 16-17 Primal Monarch. You're right. I'm not from this world originally. I came to the primal expanse by accident, and I am trying to look for a way back to my own world. Yuan said to the divine fox of grand prophecy after she correctly guessed his identity. And you think I know this method? What made you come here anyway? The divine fox asked. That's what the Supreme Ox said. Don't tell me you don't. Yuan swallowed nervously. I do know how to leave this world. Really? Yuan's expression brightened after hearing this. Yes, but I do not have the power to do so. If you want to leave this world, you will need to find someone else. Not this again. Yuan muttered in disbelief. He had already spent a year in the primal expanse, with most of that time devoted to searching for someone who could help him escape this realm. This was now the third time he was being directed to find another individual who might be able to assist him. The repeated dead ends were becoming increasingly frustrating, but there was nothing he could do but continue following these leads. Seeing Yuan's disappointed face, the divine fox elaborated, You probably don't know this, but the primal expanse has a master, one true ruler that governs every primal and predator in existence. Not only does he rule over the entire primal expanse, but he also has the power to connect this world to the other world. If you want to leave this world, you'll need to find him. Who is this individual? Yuan asked. Some call him the one true monarch while others call him the primal monarch or monarch of primals. Primal monarch? Yuan repeated in a mumbling voice. Although this should have been his first time hearing of this individual, Yuan couldn't shake a sense of familiarity, as if he somehow already knew or was connected to them in some way. Where can I find him? Yuan then asked. The divine fox pointed the skewers in her hand at him and said, So what kind of meat is this? Clearly she had no intention of answering all of his questions for free. The divine fox pointed the skewers in her hand at him and said, So what kind of meat is this? Clearly she had no intention of answering all of his questions for free. There are 3 types of meat used for those meat skewers. They come from animals we call chicken, lamb, and cow. Are animals in your world what we call primals here? She asked. No. Animals don't have spiritual energy. They're essentially powerless primals. I see. Which meat is this? Divine Fox asked as she showed him one of the skewers. That white meat is from chicken. The small, chunky ones are lamb meat. The brown slices are beef, cow meat. Yuan explained. And what are these tiny specks of dust on it? I can tell that's where most of the flavors come from. The divine fox continued to inquire. We call those spices, which are commonly used to give or enhance flavors in our food. Without them, the meat will taste quite bland. I see, how intriguing. The divine fox stared at the meat skewers. I happen to have some spices on me. If you want, I can give you some. Yuan suddenly retrieved several bottles of spices, mainly salt, sugar, garlic, and crushed pepper. Oh. The divine fox's gaze suddenly brightened. Of course it's not for free. If you want to find the primal monarch, it's impossible. He's not an individual you can just seek out. Like me, he will only appear before you if he chooses to do so. If he doesn't want you to find him, you will spend the rest of your life trying. What? Then how am I? The divine fox interrupted. Of course I can help you give you a better chance of finding him. With my divination I can locate his proximity. Whether or not you will be able to find him is entirely up to your luck and fate. However, for my abilities to work on the primal monarch, I will need to use a tremendous amount of chaotic essence. More than what I currently have, so you'll need to supply me with the rest. This is also why I can only give you his proximity, as I lack the power to do anything more. Yuan tossed the spices to the divine fox of grand prophecy after receiving her answer. So, what would it cost to have you help me find him? Yuan asked the following moment. It'll be severely weakened after using my ability on the primal monarch, so it'll cost you more than just some spices or food. The divine fox said. I have an annoying neighbor who's always been a pain in my butt and consistently trying to scheme against me. I want you to get rid of them for me, she said. If this individual is so strong that even you cannot get rid of them, what hope do I have? Yuan asked. They're not particularly strong. I would have no issue dealing with someone at their level in ordinary circumstances, but this one has a special background, so I am unable to harm them without putting myself at risk. With that being said, they still have the strength of a perfect chaotic king, way above what you can handle at your current level. Perfect chaotic king, so around divine sovereign, huh? I think I can manage. Yuan said. Huh. You're barely a perfect chaotic adept. There's no way you can defeat someone 3 major realms stronger than yourself. In the first place, I never expected you to do the work, but your little friend here. The divine fox of grand prophecy's gaze stared at Yingzi as she spoke. Yuan smiled and said, I have my ways. Whatever. I don't care how you deal with that bastard as long as you get rid of him. Once you do that, I'll divine the Primal Monarch's location for you. Also, don't forget about the extra chaotic essence. I need a treasure that will temporarily boost my strength or it won't work, and coincidentally, that annoying bastard has something like that in his possession. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 16:18 Starfire Dragon. Chapter 16:18 Starfire Dragon. So, who is this primal that you want to get rid of? Yuan asked. Not a primal. He's a predator. The divine fox corrected him. He has a dragon bloodline, a real one. Dragon bloodline, huh? Is that why you cannot attack him? He's from the divine dragon sanctuary, one of the top powers in the primal expanse. If I attack him and offend them, they could easily destroy me in my territory. However, you're a different story. Even if you kill him, it won't affect you once you leave this place. Yuan raised an eyebrow and said, but you were expecting Yingzi to kill him, and she is a resident of this world. Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy looked at Yingzi and sneered, you know nothing about shadow dwellers. With their ability to hide their presence completely, she can traverse the primal expanse without worry, even with the entire world hunting her. Even if she's completely invisible, it doesn't make it okay to use her like that. Also, I don't have to kill your neighbor, only get rid of him, right? The Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy became silent to ponder. A moment later she spoke, I would prefer it if you killed him, but if you can't, just make sure he never returns. Sounds good. Then I'll go visit him now. Yuan said. What about me? Yingzi asked. I don't think you'll need your help this time, but you can come with me just in case. Yingzi nodded and decided to follow him, motivated by the opportunity to possibly acquire more meat skewers. Yuan began traveling to the dragon's territory after acquiring more information from the Divine Fox. According to the Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy, Yuan's next target was a Starfire dragon, who resided within the Flaming Peak, a fiery land perpetually engulfed in flames. The Flaming Peak was roughly 10 days away from Mystic Valley, even when traveling at Yingzi's swift pace. As they neared their destination, the temperature soared to extreme levels, reaching intensities that could melt even spirit kings if they ventured too close. If it weren't for my physique, I would probably be a puddle right now, Yuan thought to himself as he tried to cool himself. He looked at Yingzi, who didn't have a single drop of sweat on her, seemingly unaffected by the intense heat. The heat only worsened as they approached the Flaming Peak. However, despite his situation, Yuan took this opportunity to temper his body. As Yuan bolstered his fire resistance, the oppressive heat began to affect him less. Gradually, he adjusted until the once scorching temperatures felt merely warm, akin to that of lukewarm water. Upon arriving at Flaming Peak, Yuan was met with a fiery spectacle. The place itself was an island featuring a solitary mountain at its center. The entire island was engulfed in flames, and the mountain was an active volcano, further intensifying the blazing landscape. Upon arriving at Flaming Peak, Yuan was met with a fiery spectacle. The place itself was an island featuring a solitary mountain at its center. The entire island was engulfed in flames, and the mountain was an active volcano, further intensifying the blazing landscape. Resting within the volcano, submerged in lava, was a solitary silhouette. Upon closer examination with his divine sense, Yuan discovered it was a handsome young man with short red hair. When the handsome young man sensed Yuan's divine sense probing, his eyes snapped wide open, revealing their striking golden hue. Who dares to spy on this young lord? The Starfire dragon roared as he leaped into the air before staring directly at Yuan's direction. It's him? A dragon? The Starfire dragon narrowed his eyes after realizing this. Which clan do you belong to? And what business do you have here in my territory, with a shadow dweller no less? The Starfire dragon immediately began interrogating Yuan. How dare a lowly Starfire dragon question me? Yuan roared in an arrogant voice. Given that the primal expanse was a dog-eat-dog world, Yuan decided that it would be in his best interest to project strength, adopting an overbearing demeanor to show no signs of weakness. A lowly Starfire dragon? The handsome young man trembled in anger and disbelief. While it was true that the Starfire dragon's bloodline wasn't top tier, ranking only in the lower middle in terms of quality and purity, the Starfire dragon had never before been humiliated or looked down upon in such a manner. How dare you? As the Starfire dragon's anger surged, so did its aura, sending powerful ripples across the entire island, causing the flames to dance violently. I don't care who you are or where the fuck you came from, but you will not be leaving here alive today. The Starfire dragon soared toward Yuan like a flaming meteor. Seeing this, Ingzi spoke. Do you want me to suppress him for you? No, it's fine. I can handle this. Ingzi puffed her cheeks at his refusal, seemingly disappointed that she couldn't earn some meat skewers. Once the Starfire dragon was close enough, Yuan suddenly activated Dragon's Gaze. Wah! The Starfire dragon halted upon being struck by Dragon's Gaze. This power is Dragon's influence. Your royalty? The Starfire dragon cried out loud, his anger dissipating instantly after realizing he was baring his fangs against royalty. Even if he had the Divine Dragon Sanctuary's backing, they would not hesitate to disown him if they knew had offended a dragon of a royal bloodline. Why the hell is a royal dragon causing trouble for me, a nobody? Although the Starfire dragon found it weird that he didn't recognize Yuan even though he memorized every member of the royal family, not to mention Yuan's low cultivation base, he was in no position to think properly. Your Highness, this is a misunderstanding. Please tell me why you are here. The Starfire dragon lowered his head and said, Not only do you dare to question me, but you even dare to give me orders. Who do you think you are, huh? Yuan roared, sending chills down the Starfire dragon's spine. This overbearing demeanor. The strength of his dragon's influence. He's definitely royalty, a high-ranking one at that. He cried inwardly. Chapter 1619 Starfire Dragon 2. Chapter 1619 Starfire Dragon 2. And my apologies, Your Highness. It wasn't my intention. I was wrong. Starfire Dragon quickly lowered his head. If you know you're wrong, why are you still hovering above me and looking down on me like you're above me? Get on your knees. Or are you waiting for me to help you with my authority? A lowly dragon like you? Yuan shouted, increasing the intensity of Dragon's Gaze. This fucker is really too overbearing. But there's nothing I can do. The Starfire dragon cried inwardly before reluctantly descending to the ground and kneeling before Yuan. Ingzi stared at Yuan with slightly widened eyes, clearly surprised by his domineering demeanor. Once the Starfire dragon was forced to kneel on the ground amidst the flames, Yuan fell silent. He spent the next several moments staring intently at the subdued dragon, his silence serving to further humiliate the proud creature. Eventually Yuan spoke, So what are you doing here on this island that is obviously too small for you? This place may be small, but the yang energy here is very beneficial for me, so I am training here. The Starfire dragon didn't dare to reveal the truth, that he was actually there to court the divine fox of grand prophecy, fearing that it might make him look weak and pathetic. Moreover, he was afraid that Yuan might take an interest in the divine fox of grand prophecy and steal her away from him. However, Yuan suddenly trembled, his face filled with anger. Why, Your Highness? The Starfire dragon had a bad feeling after seeing this. Do you think I am stupid? That I am easily fooled? How dare you, a lowly dragon, mock me? Yuan roared, his body surging with immense killing intent. The Starfire dragon was left in utter shock and fear after sensing Yuan's immense killing intent, which manifested as a red miasma enveloping the entire island. Even Ingzi, who had encountered countless bloodthirsty primals and predators throughout her life, was taken aback by the intensity of Yuan's killing intent. Despite her extensive experience with formidable beings, she had never felt anything as overwhelming as the aura Yuan now emitted. I will give you one last chance to tell me what you are doing on this island. Yuan roared. I am truly sorry, Your Highness. Training here was just an excuse. I am actually here for the Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy, whose territory is close by. I have been trying to court her for many years now, and living close to her makes it more convenient. If you don't provide me a good reason why you lied to me the first time, I'll ensure you experience a fate worse than death. Yuan said. I truly don't know why I lied to you, Your Highness. Please forgive me. No, that's not good enough. Yuan shook his head with a profound glint in his eyes. But I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Anything. Let's have a spar. If you can defeat me within half an hour, I will pretend you never lied. However, if I win, you will leave this place and never approach the Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy. The Starfire Dragon couldn't believe his ears. He wants to spar with me? As far as I can tell, he's only at perfect chaotic adept. He won't last a second against me, much less half an hour. Yuan narrowed his eyes at the Starfire Dragon and muttered in a cold voice, Are you looking down on me right now? Icha. Oh, of course not. I wouldn't dare. The Starfire Dragon vigorously shook his head. He's probably hiding his cultivation. There's no way someone with a royal bloodline would have such a low cultivation. The Starfire Dragon convinced himself. A few moments later, Yuan descended to the fiery ground. Despite his entire body being engulfed in flames, he did not burn and only felt mildly uncomfortable due to his enhanced resistance. Do you need some time to prepare? Yuan asked. No, I can start whenever. He nodded and said, Don't hold back just because of my status. I don't want any excuses later. As you command. The Starfire Dragon transformed entirely the following moment, becoming a giant, red dragon. He had expected Yuan to shift into his true form for the battle, as fighting in human form would be a disadvantage. So, when Yuan remained in his human guise, he couldn't help but ask, You're going to fight me in that appearance? You're not even worth it. In fact, if you can make me fully transform, he'll consider it my defeat, Yuan said as he partially transformed. This arrogant bastard. The Starfire Dragon clenched his teeth, cursing inwardly. Then here I come. Without using any weapons, Yuan made the first move and approached the Starfire Dragon. He wanted to see his current limit after so many breakthroughs. They clashed shortly after, with the Starfire Dragon unleashing devastating flames with every movement. Using nothing but his fists, Yuan struck the Starfire Dragon's body, each strike as heavy as mountains. Fuck. How does he exude so much power with that cultivation? It doesn't make any sense. However, as strong as it seemed, Yuan's punches were only strong enough to inflict superficial damage on the Starfire Dragon. Not only were the differences in their cultivation too vast, but the Starfire Dragon's body was unfathomably durable. Does he really intend to fight me while only partially transformed with that level of cultivation? The Starfire Dragon was in disbelief, but he was also filled with anger. Royalty or not, I will teach you a lesson for underestimating me. The Starfire Dragon opened its mouth and unleashed a massive ball of flames, its size rivaling that of the entire island itself. The air around it shimmered with intense heat as the colossal fireball gathered energy. Let's see if you still refuse to fully transform after this. Starfire Meteor. The Starfire Dragon released the attack shortly after, hurling the massive ball of flames at Yuan. Chapter 1620 Starfire Dragon 3. Chapter 1620 Starfire Dragon 3. Long before the Starfire Dragon's fiery attack even reached him, Yuan could feel his skin being scorched by the intense heat radiating from the massive ball of flames. Despite the dangerous situation, he refused to move away, seeming intent on blocking the attack with his bare body. He can't be serious, right? The Starfire Dragon muttered in a dazed voice. After the Starfire Dragon unleashed his attack, he began to fear the possibility of actually killing Yuan. Unsure, he glanced at Yingzi, searching for any sign of concern. Noting her nonchalant demeanor, he sighed in relief, thinking, I doubt she would actually let me kill him. I need to push him to fully transform, no matter the cost. With this resolution, he continued his fiery assault. As the Starfire Meteor neared, about to make an impact, Yuan wrapped his arm in enhanced sword aura and flicked it toward the massive ball of flames. The heat was intense enough to incinerate his arm completely, yet he sliced the meteor in half, and his burned arm fully recovered a few seconds later. What is that sharp energy? Yingzi's eyes widened with interest after seeing sword aura for the first time. The Starfire Dragon was just as shocked and puzzled as Yingzi, as had never heard of anything like that before. What is that weird energy? And what is with that ridiculous regenerative ability? My flames have a unique property that greatly reduces healing. Why isn't it working on him? Unbeknownst to the Starfire dragon, his flames actually reduced Yuan's healing ability. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken him a few seconds to heal but instantly. Not bad. Yuan examined his arm, which appeared completely healed on the surface. Despite this, a lingering burning sensation remained. What kind of dragon bloodline does he have? I don't know of any bloodlines with such a powerful healing ability, not to mention that weird energy he used to split my fire. Now let's see if you can cut this. The Starfire dragon soared into the air, spreading his wings wide. As he did so, tens of thousands of small fireballs materialized, raining down upon Yuan like a fiery meteor shower. In response, Yuan cloaked his entire body in enhanced sword aura, transforming himself into a blur as he charged directly toward the Starfire dragon, undeterred by the onslaught of flames. As Yuan charged forward, his enhanced sword aura sliced through the barrage of fireballs, annihilating anything it touched. However, the intense heat from the fireballs penetrated his aura, inflicting direct damage on his body. Despite this, Yuan's form, now completely charred, continued to advance resolutely towards the Starfire dragon. What the fuck? The Starfire dragon was left terrified by Yuan's unrelenting will and persistence. He always thought dragons with royal bloodline were mentally weak and disliked pain, but Yuan appeared to be the complete opposite of the rumors. In the midst of Starfire dragon's shock, Yuan arrived before him and swung his arm, unleashing a powerful sword light. The Starfire dragon hastily snapped out of his daze to avoid the sword light, but he failed and ended up having one of his wings severed. He unleashed a thunderous roar, echoing through the air with such ferocity that he seemed to have entered a state of frenzy. I don't care anymore. The Starfire dragon suddenly curled his body into a tight ball, and a red, ominous light began radiating from him, signaling the buildup of a potentially devastating attack. Need my help? You might die from this, Ingzi suddenly said. Yuan shook his head with a smile. It'll be fine. Not wanting to get caught up in the blast, Ingzi distanced herself from the battlefield. Starfire. The light suddenly intensified, and a fiery aura enveloped the Starfire dragon. Burst. The Starfire dragon erupted in a colossal explosion, his flames rapidly expanding to envelop the entire island in a mere blink of an eye, turning the surroundings into a sea of fire, including the ocean. The ferocious fire from the Starfire dragon's explosion obliterated everything it touched, leaving nothing behind. Yuan was completely engulfed by the flames. The explosion maintained its intensity, with a massive ball of fire resembling the sun hanging in the air for several moments before it gradually began to dissipate. The Starfire dragon, completely exhausted of chaotic essence, fell directly into the ocean afterward. Ingzi looked around for Yuan, but he was nowhere to be seen, almost as if had been erased from existence. Suddenly, as if had materialized out of thin air, Yuan's body quickly recovered until there was not a single burn left on his body. Seeing this, Ingzi began doubting whether Yuan was a human or a monster. What kind of dragon are you? Starfire dragon muttered in a low voice as he stared at Yuan with a defeated look on his face. I have never seen or heard of an indestructible dragon before. Even the shadow dragons, rumored to be as indestructible as shadow dwellers, would have perished just now. That's none of your business. Anyway, it's your defeat, so you'll never show your face before the divine fox of grand prophecy again as punishment. If I find out that you've broken our agreement, I will slaughter your entire bloodline. Do you understand? Of course, Your Highness. I swear upon my bloodline that I will never approach the divine fox of grand prophecy again. Yuan nodded and suddenly retrieved a pill before tossing it into the dragon's mouth. What did you just feed me? The Starfire dragon was instantly alarmed. Relax. That will recover your injuries, Yuan said. Sure enough, the Starfire dragon's exhaustion was quickly lifted, and within minutes he was full of energy, almost as if they had never fought. What a miracle treasure. Thank you, Your Highness. The Starfire dragon returned to his human appearance and bowed to Yuan. I'm tired of seeing your face. Scram. Yuan coldly sneered. Yes. The Starfire dragon didn't dare to linger and immediately flew away as if his life depended on it. Chapter 1621 Ranked Territories. Chapter 1621 Ranked Territories. It feels like I am forgetting something. Yuan muttered to himself shortly after the Starfire dragon left the scene. Whatever. It's too late to worry about that now. Sometime later, Yingzi brought Yuan with her back to the Mystic Valley. Do all humans have regenerative abilities like that? Yingzi asked him as they traveled. No, they don't. I have an ability that allows me to regenerate that quickly. Can this ability be taught? I don't think so, since it requires you to eat something dangerous. While humans are incapable of consuming demon cores, Yuan wondered if beasts in the primal expanse have such capability, since the chaotic essence in their world was similar to the energy found within demon cores. Once they returned to the Mystic Valley, the divine fox of Grand Prophecy appeared before them with a weird expression on her face. She had watched their interaction with the Starfire dragon and was left speechless by the results. Are you really human? She suddenly asked Yuan with a doubtful face. Of course. What makes you think otherwise? The divine fox of Grand Prophecy explained. Because humans aren't capable of using the power of our world. Moreover, you managed to create an incomplete chaotic heart. Are you perhaps half human and half primal? The divine fox of Grand Prophecy had always suspected Yuan's identity since the very beginning, but due to so many confusing factors, it was nearly impossible to confirm anything about him. No, I am full human. I am also unsure why I can cultivate chaotic essence, but I think it might have something to do with my physique. The divine fox of Grand Prophecy pondered for a moment before responding. If I recall correctly, some humans are born with special bodies and bloodlines, just like primals, but they're incredibly rare. What about your healing abilities? Is that also due to your unique physique? No, that's something else entirely. Is that so? Well, I won't pry further. Anyway, I believe you may have forgotten about something. Oh? I also had the same feeling, but I don't remember what exactly. You were supposed to acquire a treasure that will allow me to use more chaotic essence than I currently contain, and the Starfire dragon had something like that, but you let him go without it. Alright. I remember now. With that said, I was only going to do that if I killed him, which I didn't. Also, he would become suspicious of my identity if I suddenly asked for his treasure. I'm supposed to be royalty after all. Dragon's influence, huh? I was extremely shocked when you used it. Does your world have dragons too? Of course. In fact, I think the beasts in my world originally came from the primal expanse. The only difference is that they cultivate different resources. It's possible, but there is only one individual who can confirm that, the Primal Monarch. The divine fox of Grand Prophecy said. Anyway, now that you've dealt with my annoying neighbor, you'll need to find me a treasure that can temporarily boost my chaotic essence. The closest place with something like that would be the Phoenix's territory. They're about 3 months away from here. Yuan narrowed his eyes at this information. Phoenix's territory? He wondered if they could help accelerate Feng Yuxiang's recovery. Despite his efforts in constantly feeding her his blood, there were still no signs that she would awaken anytime soon. Yes, but there is a slight problem. The phoenixes in this world aren't kind to dragons. In fact, they detest each other to the point where they will attack each other on sight. I'm afraid you won't get near them, much less acquire their treasure. You call that a slight problem? Yuan said with a raised eyebrow. The divine fox of Grand Prophecy shrugged and said, then you'll have to visit the divine dragon sanctuary. They're pretty far from here, but there is a space tunnel nearby that will shorten the trip to 2 years, from 200 years. Yuan shook his head and said, no, I'll visit the phoenix's territory. I have some business with them regardless of the treasure. Are you sure? Even the shadow dweller won't be able to protect you there. The divine fox said as she shifted her gaze to Yingzi. While Yingzi was undoubtedly powerful, she was not among the most powerful beings in the primal expanse. As a matter of fact, she was far from it. Yuan looked at Yingzi and asked her, I never asked you, but how strong are you? Due to her unique existence, it was impossible to determine Yingzi's cultivation base unless she disclosed it herself. Early Chaotic Emperor, she calmly revealed. Only Early Chaotic Emperor? Yuan was a little surprised to hear that she was only slightly stronger than the Starfire dragon in terms of cultivation, as she had been incredibly confident throughout their journey. The Starfire dragon had a cultivation equivalent of Divine Sovereign in the 9 heavens, so Yingzi would only be as strong as a divine ancestor. You shouldn't underestimate a shadow dweller because, just like you, they're far more powerful in reality due to their unique abilities to control shadows. The divine fox of Grand Prophecy said. At her level, she can probably defeat even a chaotic overlord, much less a perfect chaotic emperor, and the difference between a chaotic emperor and a chaotic overlord is immense, sort of like the difference between being a mortal and an immortal in your world. However, the Phoenix territory you'll be heading to is a rank 2 territory, with rank 1 being the strongest and rank 3 being the weakest. In a rank 2 territory, there will be multiple chaotic immortals and a single one has the capability to erase you from existence with their breath alone. What rank is the Mystic Valley? Yuan asked out of curiosity. The Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy laughed out loud. Ha! My territory doesn't even qualify to be ranked. Only large communities with many powerful predators are qualified. This place is a small house on an island in comparison. Chapter 1622 Feng Yuxiang's Spatial Ring? Chapter 1622 Feng Yuxiang's Spatial Ring. In order for a territory to be ranked, it must first have a community with at least 100 predators. Once that requirement was fulfilled, the overall prowess of that territory determined the rank of the territory. The Phoenix territory that Yuan planned on going to was a rank 2 territory, with over 10 chaotic immortals, each as strong as a bronze immortal at the very least. Even though the Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy warned him of the dangers and the Phoenix's hatred toward dragons, Yuan had to go there not just to find the Primal Monarch but also for Feng Yuxiang. If you're resolute on going to the Phoenix's territory, I won't stop you. The Divine Fox of Grand Prophecy pointed in a certain direction and continued, if you go straight, you'll arrive at your destination in about 3 months, and I have already taken into consideration the Shadow Dweller's speed. Thank you. I'll return once I acquire the treasure. Don't forget this time, and it's called the True Ember. I want. Yuan smiled. Yuan and Yingzi left the Mystic Valley and began their journey to the Phoenix's territory shortly after. Yingzi, I don't expect you to protect me inside the Phoenix's territory. If you sense danger, just run. However, Yingzi said, while I won't be able to defeat the Phoenixes, I can ensure you keep your life at the very least, but it'll cost you. Of course. He nodded. While they traveled, Yuan pondered how he should communicate with the Phoenixes once they arrived. According to the Divine Fox, they will attack dragons on sight, so I probably won't be able to have a proper conversation with them. I should try to acquire their attention as soon as possible, but how can I achieve that? Yuan pondered whether it would be a good idea to reveal Feng Yuxiang's egg to them. No, I can't do that until I am certain they won't attack me. I cannot risk it, especially when Feng is in that condition. Should I just use Immortal Monarch's dominion on them? That will definitely get their attention, but there's a chance it might not work on them, and there's a good chance it might anger them even further. Unable to think of anything, Yuan asked Xiaohua and Yuning for advice. Sorry, but I can't think of anything. Yuning sighed. Brother Yuan, why don't you look inside that dumb pigeon's spatial ring and see if there's anything useful in there? Xiaohua suddenly suggested. Feng Yuxiang had left behind her spatial ring when she entered her slumber. Normally, one wouldn't be able to access another person's spatial ring while the owner was still alive, but Feng Yuxiang was Yuan's servant and had previously granted him permission to use it. However, Yuan never even tried to look inside her spatial ring, as he respected her privacy and refused to invade it. I guess I have no choice. I'll apologize to her later. Yuan retrieved Feng Yuxiang's spatial ring and opened it for the first time. Yuan's eyes widened with shock after seeing the treasures inside. Had always known that Feng Yuxiang had a large collection of rare treasures because of her store in the lower heavens, but had vastly underestimated her wealth. After seeing just how truly wealthy Feng Yuxiang was, Yuan couldn't help but bow to her inside his head. Not only did Feng Yuxiang's spatial ring have a larger storage space than his own dragon spatial ring, but there were all sorts of treasures that could only be found in the upper heavens. What shed shone in her store at the lower heavens barely scratched the surface of her vast collection. There were mountains of treasures in the spatial ring for Yuan to go through, and luckily for him, he had nothing but time for the next 3 months. After spending 2.5 months going through all of the items, Yuan found several that might help him in the Phoenix's territory. Burning Phoenix Pill, Tier 7, Purity, 94%. Effects: permanently increases fire resistance and grants the power of a phoenix for 9 sunrises. Ancient Phoenix Robes, Grade, Mythic, Quality, Peak. Description: an ancient robe once worn by the most noble of phoenixes, symbolizing their supreme status and power. Grants fire immunity. It can only be worn by those with a phoenix bloodline. Warning: those without a phoenix bloodline will be punished with Phoenix's wrath if they try to wear this item. Primordial Phoenix Blood Essence. Effects. Description: the blood essence of a primordial phoenix. When Yuan saw the primordial phoenix blood essence, it reminded him of the dragon ancestor's blood essence, and knowing how valuable it was, he didn't dare to use it without Feng Yuxiang's permission. However, it made him wonder how Feng Yuxiang acquired such a precious treasure in the first place. Phoenix's wrath, how bad could it be? After taking some time to mentally prepare himself, Yuan asked Yingzi to stop traveling temporarily. "Give me a moment to try something out," he said to her before gaining some distance from her. Once he felt there was enough distance between them, Yuan retrieved the ancient phoenix robes and wore it on him. Ding. Phoenix's wrath, effects, inflicts immense pain upon the targeted. Yuan's body suddenly became engulfed in flames that were several times stronger than the Starfire dragon's most powerful attack, enveloping him in a blazing aura of unprecedented pain. Yet, despite the immense pain and being enveloped in flames far more intense than those of the Starfire dragon, Yuan's body resisted immediate disintegration, and only his skin was burnt away. The purpose of Phoenix's wrath was to inflict pain so excruciating that death would seem a preferable alternative. Yuan attempted to withstand the pain, but even with his exceptional physique and high pain tolerance, he could only bear it for a few seconds. Upon removing the ancient phoenix robes, the flames of Phoenix's wrath dissipated, yet the agonizing pain lingered in his body for a little longer, enough to nearly make him lose consciousness. Chapter 1623 Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau. Chapter 1623 Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau. Fuck, that was fucking painful. Yuan cursed out loud after taking off the ancient phoenix robes. Had worn it out of curiosity and expected some pain, but he never anticipated it to be that painful. Even though it increased my fire resistance by an entire stage after wearing it for a few seconds, I don't want to experience that level of pain again. It's not worth it. Yuan quickly put the ancient phoenix robes back into Feng Yuxiang's spatial ring before retrieving another treasure. I need to mask my dragon scent first and foremost since I cannot undo my transformation, or everyone will know that I am a human. The item he retrieved was a small red pouch. Phoenix powder. Description: made from phoenix feathers. It has incredible healing properties and produces the scent of a phoenix when mixed with water. This is exactly what I am looking for. Since it's only made from feathers, I doubt it's too valuable to use. Yuan smiled at this find. Sometime later, Yuan filled a bottle with water and added the phoenix powder to it, creating a light red liquid that resembled blood diluted in water. The mixture emitted a unique scent that tingled his nose with each whiff. "Yingzi, does this smell like a phoenix to you?" Yuan asked her. Yingzi took a deep breath and pondered for a moment before responding. "It's similar, but it's a little weak. I don't think it'll be able to mask your dragon scent either." "Is that so?" Upon hearing Yingzi's criticism, Yuan added more phoenix powder to the liquid, intensifying the smell. "That should be good enough," Yingzi said after taking another deep breath. "Okay." Yuan proceeded to rub the liquid all over his body until Yingzi could no longer smell the scent of dragons on him. Not only did the liquid mask his dragon scent and make him smell like a phoenix, but he could also feel his body becoming more energetic. I should save the burning phoenix pill for when I really need it since it only lasts for 9 days. Now that Yuan had found a way to mask his dragon scent, he needed to make his identity more convincing, a challenging task given that he wasn't originally from their world, and crafting a believable persona required careful attention to the cultural and social nuances of this new environment. "Can you tell me what you know about phoenixes in the primal expanse?" Yuan asked Yingzi as they continued their journey. Yingzi had to really think about it since she hadn't had much interaction with phoenixes, given their rarity. "I'm not too familiar with them, but from what I've heard, they're all incredibly selfish and unreasonably prideful creatures. They're arrogant, have bad tempers, and are generally unpleasant to be around if you're not a fellow phoenix." Yingzi's description of phoenixes left Yuan speechless, but he didn't doubt it. A week later, Yuan had to reapply the liquid on his body to maintain his phoenix scent. As they approached the phoenix's territory, Yingzi suddenly warned Yuan, "A phoenix is coming." Moments later, a large, fiery phoenix could be seen soaring in their direction. This phoenix stopped once it was before Yuan. "Divine Emperor, huh? A little weaker than I was expecting, but this is good for us." Yuan quickly gauged the phoenix's strength. "I don't recognize you. Which bloodline do you belong to? And what are you trying to achieve in our Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau?" The phoenix asked him. "I am from the ancient Phoenix bloodline," Yuan said, using Feng Yuxiang's bloodline as his own. "Ancient Phoenix?" The phoenix exclaimed in a shocked voice after hearing this. That's impossible. There are very few ancient phoenixes in the primal expanse and I know all of them. How come I don't recognize you? Can't you tell by my cultivation that I was only recently born? Yuan shook his head in a disappointed manner. Indeed you do smell a little young. Who are your parents if you don't mind me asking? Yuan frowned and responded in an irritated tone, I do mind. Who the hell are you to question me? I may be young but I still have the ancient phoenix bloodline. Watch your manners. He deduced that the ancient phoenix bloodline likely held a high standing among the phoenix clans, so he decided to embrace this identity and play along. The phoenix trembled after hearing Yuan and quickly said, my apologies. Forget it. Anyway, let's talk about my reason for being here. I am looking for a treasure called the True Ember and I was told that I could find it here. The True Ember? While it's true that we have it, it's not something we can give away. I am willing to trade for it. Is there anything you want for it? I apologize, but I do not have the authority to speak on this. Then bring me to someone who does. I understand. Please follow me. Sometime later, they reached the heart of the territory, where a community of phoenixes resided. However, within the Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau, most of the phoenixes possessed low-grade bloodlines, and the majority of its population consisted not of true phoenix bloodlines but rather of subspecies related to phoenixes, such as the divine young bird or the vermilion skyhawk. Please wait here while I notify our leader of your presence. The phoenix that led Yuan said to him before disappearing somewhere. Yuan used this opportunity to closely observe the Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau. Despite being referred to as a community, there were no buildings. Instead, most of the beings resided within caves and outdoor nests. This setting gave Yuan the impression of being in a zoo, one predominantly populated by birds and phoenixes, a stark contrast to the urban or structured habitats he might have expected. The temperature within the Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau was also hot and dry, but it wasn't as bad as the Starfire Dragon's territory. Still, it was hot enough to temper his body. Chapter 1624 Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau 2. Chapter 1624 Phoenix Ascendancy Plateau 2. Leader, we have a situation. The phoenix that met with Yuan bowed before a handsome young man. This young man's hair blazed red with strands of bright orange, mirroring the fiery aura he carried about him. Clad in a robe of red and gold, the colors of flame and royalty, he exuded the powerful presence of a golden immortal, attracting attention and awe from those around him. Is this about the guest you brought back? The young man asked. Yes. He claims to have the ancient phoenix bloodline. It's a little suspicious, but I dare not verify his identity. The phoenix said. Even if there was a 99% chance that Yuan might be a fake, they couldn't risk offending an ancient phoenix. He is also traveling with a shadow dweller. A phoenix and a shadow dweller traveling together? What an odd pair. A young lady with features reminiscent of the young man sat beside him, her expression marked by curiosity. The ancient phoenix bloodline is an imperial-grade bloodline, and it ranks in the top 3 amongst all phoenix bloodlines. They're essentially royalty. Meanwhile, my Scarlet Phoenix bloodline is only ranked 9th. If he turns out to be real, we must assist him to the best of our capabilities. However, if he is a fake, it'll make him suffer a fate worse than death. The young man said. What does he want anyway? He wishes to trade for our True Ember. The True Ember, huh? While it's not a priceless artifact, it's quite valuable. If he's an ancient phoenix, he is likely to have come from the rank 1 phoenix territory, Eternal Phoenix Domain, and they have plenty of artifacts that surpass our True Ember, so why would he come all the way here? Forget it. There's no point guessing their motives. Bring them to me and I'll ask them myself. Yes. The phoenix departed the next moment, returning to Yuan and Yingzi. Nobody is dumb or bold enough to imitate an ancient phoenix, right? The young lady suddenly muttered out loud. The young man sighed. The primal expanse is immense beyond comprehension. There are bound to be some fearless individuals out there. Sometime later, the phoenix returned to Yuan's side. Esteemed guest, our leader would like to meet you. Please follow me. The phoenix led Yuan and Yingzi to the summit of the tallest mountain within the territory. Upon reaching the peak, Yuan was greeted by a surprisingly familiar sight. A pagoda stood prominently on the mountaintop. So they do have buildings in this world. I guess they're just incredibly rare. Yuan thought to himself. However, the pagoda was striking in its simplicity, almost to a fault. It appeared that the builder, while earnest in their efforts, had clearly lacked experience and imagination in its design, resulting in a structure that was functional but unadorned and stark. It was almost as if the builder had to work on it with nothing but a brief explanation of its outer appearance. Once the Phoenix brought Yuan and Yingzi inside the pagoda, it became even more apparent that the builder had no idea what they were building. Although the pagoda looked like it had 4 floors from the outside, inside there was only 1 floor and room. The other floors were just an empty space. Inside, at the far end of the modestly decorated room, sat 2 individuals, a handsome young man and a beautiful young woman. Their appearance was top quality, surpassing even the appearance Yuan had given the Supreme Ox. However, they would still only be considered slightly above average when compared to those truly beautiful in the 9 heavens. The young man narrowed his eyes at Yuan the instant they entered the room, his gaze as sharp as swords. Before Yuan could even open his mouth, the young man spoke with a cold expression. "Bastard, what are you trying to pull here?" "What do you mean?" Yuan frowned. The ancient Phoenix bloodline ranks the 3rd purest amongst all Phoenix bloodlines, and all inferior bloodlines would naturally feel submissive toward them. "You may smell like a phoenix, but I don't feel anything from you. I have seen phoenixes with royal bloodlines before, and your aura is nothing like theirs. You may be able to mimic our smell, but you will never be able to mimic our royal bloodline. You should have disguised as an ordinary phoenix instead, you bastard." Even though his disguise was instantly exposed, Yuan remained calm and began to think of a way out of his predicament. "Are you willing to bet your life, your territory and all its residents on those accusations?" Yuan asked. "Your threat is as weak and empty as your attempt to fool me. I can easily erase someone at your cultivation with a sneeze. As for the Shadow Dweller, even if she has the ability to wipe us out, the Eternal Phoenix domain will avenge us. Kneel before me." The young man suddenly roared, and his body exuded a profound aura that instantly filled the room. A few moments of silence went by without anything happening, leaving Yuan puzzled. The young man frowned and muttered, "If my Phoenix's influence failed to work on you, then you must not be a Phoenix at all. What are you?" Yuan swiftly noticed an opportunity to turn the situation around and showed a cold smile on his face. "You dare order me to kneel? A lowly Phoenix like you?" The young man's face twisted with anger as he stood up. "How dare? Who permitted you to talk back? Shut up." Upon hearing Yuan's voice, imbued with an unfathomable power, the young man felt his own voice falter, leaving him unable to utter another word. The young lady turned to look at him with wide eyes. "Father? Please tell me you're only pretending to." Yuan shifted his gaze to her and shouted, "Shut up." The young lady immediately felt as though someone had suddenly seized her throat, sealing her ability to speak. "Kneel?" But, unable to resist his command, the young man and young lady suddenly fell to their knees, their gaze filled with shock and horror as they stared at Yuan. "I can upgrade your appearance and your daughters in exchange for the true Ember." The young man looked at him with wide eyes and said, "Really?" He nodded and said, "Give me a brief description of your ideal appearance. Young, middle-aged, or old? Hair color and length? Body shape?" "I would prefer something a little older than my current appearance. I like my current hair color and style. As for my body..." After receiving the description, Yuan consumed an appearance-altering pill and transformed into the young man's ideal appearance. The young man's eyes widened with surprise after seeing how high quality it was. "What do you think? Can I really have such a high-quality appearance? Are you doubting me?" Yuan narrowed his eyes. "And no." "Then hurry up and take it." The young man quickly changed his appearance, becoming more handsome, a little taller and a few years older. "Thank you, Your Highness, for this appearance." The young man stood up and bowed to Yuan. "If there's anything else you need, please don't hesitate to ask." Yuan smiled and quickly said, "Then let me ask you something." He retrieved Feng Yuxiang's egg and continued, "Do you know how I can speed up my friend's recovery progress?" That's... The young man's face became filled with shock after seeing the egg. "What's wrong?" Yuan asked him with a slight frown. Who is inside that shell? I have seen this state countless times before, but I have never seen such a complex and powerful shell. Not to mention. Yet, what shocked him most wasn't the shell itself but the overwhelming sensation it evoked within him. Bloodlines of a lower grade instinctively revere those of higher lineage, and he felt a powerful compulsion to kneel and kowtow before the entity within the shell. There's only one bloodline that could make my blood react in such a fashion. To think such a powerful entity would be in this sorry state. What happened? He wondered inwardly. I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do here to help you or the one inside that shell since our bloodlines are too weak. If you want to revive the phoenix within that shell, you'll need to visit the Eternal Phoenix domain. There, you'll be able to find the primordial phoenix. How far away is the Eternal Phoenix domain? Yuan asked Ingzi since he would have exposed himself if he had asked the phoenix before him. It's on the other side of the world, so it'll take several hundred years if we travel normally, she said. That's too far. I guess we'll have to put this on hold for now. Yuan sighed inwardly. Sometime later, the young lady returned to the room with the true Ember, but she was astonished by her father's new appearance. His Highness said he'd upgrade our appearances for the true Ember, he explained. Once he received the description, Yuan gave the young lady her new appearance. Thank you, Your Highness. Here is the true Ember. The young lady handed Yuan a small black rock that emitted intense heat. Thank you. Yuan quickly tossed the true Ember inside his spatial ring. Chapter 1626 Ancient Canyon. Chapter 1626 Ancient Canyon. After putting away the true Ember, Yuan quickly made his way toward the exit, unwilling to remain in the Phoenix's territory any longer. Neither the young man nor the young lady tried to stop him. In fact, they also wanted him to leave as soon as possible. Once they left, Yuan and Ingzi began flying back to the Mystic Valley. Fuck, this is why I hate royalty. They do as they please and treat us like dirt. The young man sneered in disdain once they were alone. We did call him a fake first. The young lady sighed out loud. I don't understand what went wrong. As far as I can tell, he definitely didn't have the bloodline of an ancient phoenix. Yet, he was able to use Phoenix's influence on me despite his lack of cultivation. Forget it. It's already in the past. 3 months later, Yuan and Ingzi made it back to the Mystic Valley in one piece. You're back already? That was faster than I anticipated. The divine fox of grand prophecy greeted them the moment they entered her territory. I got the true Ember, Yuan said. Really? How did you deal with the phoenixes as a dragon? Didn't they attack you on sight? Yuan shook his head with a smile. I have my methods. Anyway, here is the true Ember. He retrieved the treasure and tossed it to her. Okay, give me a week to prepare. While the divine fox of grand prophecy began her preparation to divine the Primal Monarch's location, Yuan spent that time with Meixiu and the others. While Yuan was in the Primal Expanse, Meixiu, Yuxiang, and Li Jinsi continued their training with Kelan. Meanwhile, the rest of the Demon Sealing faction had graduated from their sects and traveled to the Fourth Heaven, joining Kelan's training 3 months ago. How's your progress? Have you figured out a way to get out of the Primal Expanse yet? Wang Ming asked him during dinner. No, but I think I am getting close. Take your time so the rest of us can catch up. Shi Lang chuckled. The Primal Expanse is so vast that most of my time is spent traveling. I have been pretty lucky so far with the distance I need to travel, but am worried that the next place I need to go might take too long, Yuan sighed. He could imagine the Primal Monarch being in a location that was several decades or even centuries away. Have you tried to kill yourself? Who knows, you might respawn back in the last city you visited. Wang Bingbing suddenly said. That's quite a dangerous suggestion. It'd be disastrous if he becomes a cripple because of that. Wang Ming said. Yuan nodded and said, I have thought about it, and as Wang Ming said, it's quite risky. That said, if nothing else works, I can only try that as a last resort. By the way, the Lord wanted to speak with you as soon as possible. Wang Xiuying suddenly said. I'll go meet him after this. After dinner, Yuan went to speak with the Lord. What's up? Yuan greeted the Lord casually. We have been contacted by the Qi family. Do you remember them? The Lord said. Of course. Since you're contacting me, it must be related to demons, right? Yuan could easily guess the reason behind the Qi family's contact. The Qi family was the Earth's version of the Demon Sealing clan, and Yuan had personally trained them before. You're correct. They have recently stumbled upon another sealed demon. According to them, this demon is unfathomably strong and surpasses the 11 demons you dealt with in the past. Where is this demon? They'll deal with it as soon as possible. They haven't disclosed the location to us yet. They'll notify them of your arrival if you want to visit them directly. You can do that. I'll visit them first thing tomorrow morning. I understand. After leaving behind the starry abyss so that Ji-Ran could heal the Lord, Yuan returned to his residence. The next morning, Leah was already waiting at Yuan's front door, ready to escort him to the Qi family, just as she had done previously. Welcome back to the Qi family, Manager Leah. Yuan. The Qi family was ready to greet them long before their arrival. It's been a while. Yuan smiled. Thank you again for your assistance, Qi Man said with his hands clasped. Don't mention it. Anyway, where's the demon? It's located at the ancient canyon. Is it close to breaking out of its seal? No, and some people are watching over it even as we speak. They would notify us if there were any changes. Even if it's not close to breaking out of its seal, I am going to take care of it immediately. Qi Man then said, please don't be too hasty. We are aware of your prowess, but this demon is different. We believe it's at least a superior demon with a tiny chance of it being a demon general. A demon general, huh? Yuan muttered with an intrigued face. Suddenly, someone could be heard shouting, Elder Qi. We have just received a message from the expedition team. It's an emergency. Cracks have started appearing on the demon. What? Qi Man exclaimed. Looks like we can't take things slowly anymore, Yuan said. Bring me to the demon. Why yes, I will bring you there myself. Qi Man quickly responded. Yuan and Leah followed Qi Man to the Qi family's private jet and quickly left. A day later they arrived at their destination, the Ancient Canyon. The Ancient Canyon is a 1,000-mile-long plateau composed of horizontal layers of lava and rock, featuring a range of landscapes, including arid deserts and barren stretches. This area is rarely explored due to its harsh climate and extreme heat, which can easily reach up to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, making it nearly impossible to explore without proper equipment. We've arrived. Qi Man notified them after the jet landed. Chapter 1627 A Different Person. Chapter 1627 A Different Person. After disembarking from the jet, Qi Man led Yuan and Leah to the sealed demon, where a dozen members of the Qi family were stationed to keep watch over it. Yuan? Qi Feng, one of the people stationed there, was a little surprised to see Yuan. Hey, it's been a while. You came here alone? She asked. Yes, the others are busy with their training. Yuan's attention quickly shifted to the sealed demon in the distance. Just one? How disappointing. Actually, we found another sealed demon just a few hours ago, Qi Feng suddenly revealed. What? How powerful is it? Qi Man exclaimed. It's hard to tell, but it shouldn't be any stronger than this one. Qi Feng's gaze landed on the sealed demon several meters away. Yuan approached the demon and examined it with his divine sense. This demon is a demon general, he muttered a moment later. What? Are you certain? Qi Feng exclaimed in a shocked voice. He nodded in confirmation and continued speaking. Not only is it a demon general, but it's as powerful as a spirit sovereign. Qi Feng and everyone who heard his evaluation fell to their knees, their faces etched with despair. A spirit sovereign? How the hell are we supposed to kill it? This demon could destroy the world by itself. Qi Man cried out loud as he fell back and collapsed on the ground. Elder Qi. Grandfather. Qi Feng rushed to his side. Seeing this, Yuan said, Calm down. It's only a spirit sovereign. I'll take care of it. Qi Feng frowned at his words and said, This isn't the time to be arrogant or get carried away, Yuan. I know you're powerful, but you're only at the peak of Spirit Grandmaster. There's no way you can fight a demon that is as strong as a spirit sovereign, much less kill it. The only thing we can do is strengthen the seal until we're capable of dealing with it. True, my cultivation is only at the peak of Spirit Grandmaster, but it won't take long for me to increase it. Yuan suddenly retrieved a treasure head acquired from the Primal Expanse. After swallowing it, he could immediately feel his cultivation soaring to the next realm. A second later, Yuan had a breakthrough and reached the first level of Spirit Lord. However, his surge of spiritual energy didn't slow down. It continued relentlessly until he broke through to the second level of Spirit Lord. It then pushed him into the third level before finally settling at the fourth level of Spirit Lord. If it wasn't for the Celestial Emperor's curse, he could have easily entered the Spirit Sovereign realm with that treasure. Alright, let's get this over with. While everyone was still in a daze after witnessing Yuan break through with the ease of breathing, he swiftly unsealed the demon before any of them could even react. What have you done? Qi Feng cried out loud. Get away from here if you don't want to get caught up in our battle, Yuan said to them. Run. Chapter 1628 Second Sealed Demon. Chapter 1628 Second Sealed Demon. Damn livestock. You will regret mocking me. The demon general suddenly grew in size until it was 3 times its original height, its muscles bulging as if they were on the brink of bursting, and 2 bat-like wings sprouted from its back. So you grew a little bigger and a lot uglier. I don't see how that will save you. Yuan commented on the demon's transformation. Sure enough, even after its transformation, the demon general couldn't touch a single hair on Yuan's body, much less defeat him. This bastard has grown so much since our last spar and it's only been a year. Leah narrowed her eyes at Yuan. She had always been proud of her own talents and strength, but before Yuan she felt as insignificant as an ant. Is this the prowess of the immortal monarch? I guess he didn't command the 9 divine supremes through sheer luck. Impossible. How is he overwhelming a demon general with the strength of a spirit sovereign at his cultivation? It doesn't make any sense. Feng muttered with a dazed expression. He's not even using any demon sealing aura either. Are you telling me that he's overwhelming the demon with brute force? No wonder why he's so confident. Man cried out loud. Even if he's confident and everything seems fine for now, why is he messing around? Demons aren't playthings and things can go wrong in the blink of an eye. Feng anxiously clenched her fist. Fuck. Where did a human like you come from? The demon general no longer wanted to fight Yuan and began preparing to run away. Even if the entire world knew my name, I guess it's not possible for everyone to recognize my face, huh? Yuan muttered in a low voice. While there was not a single demon who didn't know of the divine paragon, not all of them had the misfortune of encountering him, so it wasn't shocking that this demon general didn't recognize Yuan. I guess it's about time we finish this. Yuan suddenly surged with demon sealing aura. The moment the demon general sensed this aura, its entire being trembled with fear. Although demons typically don't fear demon sealing aura, even though it is their greatest weakness, Yuan's demon sealing aura was on an entirely different level. One that made the demon feel completely powerless as if surrounded by the abyss. No matter how many times I see it, his demon sealing aura always humbles me. Man muttered, completely in awe. The demon general didn't dare to confront Yuan's demon sealing aura and instantly ran away. Where the hell do you think you're going? Yuan caught up with the demon in no time and shoved his hand into the demon's body before pulling out of its demon core. To this technique, you can't be the divine. The demon general perished before it could even finish its sentence. Yuan quickly tossed the demon core into his pocket and turned to look at the Qi family. Bring me to the next demon, he said to them. Chapter 1629 The Divine Fox of Grand Prophecies Divination. Chapter 1629 The Divine Fox of Grand Prophecies Divination. The second the abomination broke out of its seal, Yuan activated Swords of Eternal Torment. Once the abomination's massive body was covered in swords, immobilizing it, Yuan instantly transformed. His hair and eyes turned a majestic gold, and his aura erupted like a volcano, radiating immense power. That's. Leah's eyes widened with shock after seeing Yuan's dragon transformation for the first time. Not only does he know dragon's gaze, but he can even transform. She stared at Yuan's handsome face with a dazed expression. Meanwhile, after his transformation, Yuan retrieved number 1 under heaven and prepared to launch heaven-splitting sword strike. He had to control its power so that it didn't exceed the strength of a divine grandmaster and accidentally destroy the world, but he also had to ensure it was powerful enough to completely obliterate the abomination in one strike. After taking a moment to adjust and gather spiritual energy, Yuan swung his sword, launching a beam of sword light that enveloped the abomination's figure. Fortunately for them, the abomination wasn't as massive as the one Yuan had faced during the Elite Demon Sealer examination. The moment Yuan's heaven-splitting sword strike hit the formation, it triggered a massive earthquake powerful enough to be felt across the entire world. Cracks spread across the formation, yet it somehow managed to hold together, clinging to a sliver of strength. When the dust settled and the Qi family could finally see the situation, they were bewildered to find that Yuan was standing alone and the abomination had vanished entirely. Heavens! He killed a demon with the strength of a divine warrior while only being a spirit lord. Man cried out loud, his entire being trembling in awe. How on earth is he doing that? Ignoring his demon-sealing aura, his strength doesn't match his cultivation. Is he hiding his true cultivation? It doesn't make any sense. Feng shook her head. Once the abomination was defeated, it left behind its demon core. Yuan's eyes widened with surprise when he saw how different it was from an ordinary demon core. It wasn't just the size of a watermelon but also pitch black in color. This is a demon core? Yuan mumbled as he picked up the core. He was also a bit disappointed, realizing it would be impossible for him to consume a demon core of this size, as it wouldn't even fit in his mouth. The Qi family approached him once they determined it was safe to do so. What the heck is that? Qi Feng asked as she pointed at the demon core. The abomination's demon core. This is also my first time seeing something like this, he said. Qi Man shivered at its sight and said, "It feels very ominous. What are you going to do with it?" "I don't know if we can even do anything with it." Chapter 1630 Primal Monarch. Chapter 1630 Primal Monarch. What did you say? The Primal Monarch is located somewhere in the Mystic Valley? Are you sure you divined properly? Yuan looked at the divine fox of grand prophecy. Why you? Are you mocking me? I have never failed a divination. I'm sure of it. The Primal Monarch is in the Mystic Valley. The divine fox of grand prophecy said as she frantically looked at her surroundings with a nervous and fearful expression. The Primal Monarch was an entity that stood at the very pinnacle of the primal expanse. If there were primals and predators within the primal expanse, the Primal Monarch would be the apex predator, existing in a league of its own. Knowing that the Primal Monarch was in her territory, the divine fox of grand prophecy didn't dare to make any significant movements, remaining as still as a statue. Yuan looked at Yingzi and noticed that she too appeared quite nervous. It was the first time he had ever seen such emotions from her. This can't be a coincidence, Yuan thought to himself. He recalled something the divine fox of grand prophecy said. He will only appear before you if he chooses to do so, huh? He mumbled. Several moments passed in silence with nothing happening. After waiting a little longer without any changes, Yuan decided to make the first move. Primal Monarch. You can hear me, right? In fact, I bet you're looking at me right now. He shouted with the support of his spiritual energy, allowing his voice to ripple throughout the entire Mystic Valley. The divine fox of grand prophecy and Yingzi turned at him with terrified expressions on their faces. What the hell are you doing? Do you have a death wish? The divine fox shouted at him. Yuan ignored her and continued, I doubt you're here by chance. Are you here for me? If so, why don't you show yourself already? Yuan? Yingzi called out to him in a nervous tone. If the Primal Monarch wanted to kill Yuan, even she was powerless to do anything about it. Don't tell me you want to play hide and seek with me? I don't have the time for that. As Yuan's voice faded and silence returned, a faint rustling noise suddenly broke the stillness. Yuan and the others immediately turned their heads toward the source of the noise, and a small silhouette slowly emerged from the tall bushes. You are? Yuan's eyes widened with shock when he saw the appearance, the face of this individual. Once the silhouette fully emerged from the bushes, it became clear that it was a child, a young boy. He had short black hair and innocent eyes that held a sharp and powerful gaze. Like Yingzi, he had an uncanny absence of presence despite standing right in front of them. Yuan was in disbelief, not because this individual had the appearance of a child, but because the child's face was identical to his own when he was younger. It was as if he were staring at a mirror image of his past self. Chapter 1631 Retrieving Tian's Memories. Chapter 1631 Retrieving Tian's Memories. What the hell is going on here? The Primal Monarch is that human's adoptive father? The divine fox of grand prophecy was bewildered by this information. She had countless questions but she didn't dare to ask them. Since you don't remember me, I guess it's safe to assume you don't remember our promise. Did you wander to the primal expanse again by accident, too? The Primal Monarch looked at Yuan. He nodded. Yes, I came here by accident. I wanted to look for you because I was told you could take me out of this place. How long have you been watching me? The Primal Monarch sighed. Since you used my power at the Phoenix's territory. Your power? You mean Immortal Monarch's dominion? Yuan raised an eyebrow. If that's what you call it, sure. However, that power, the ability to command primals and predators, was originally mine to begin with. The Primal Monarch revealed. Yuan wasn't too surprised to learn that the Immortal Monarch had inherited his power from another source, as it seemed unlikely for a human to naturally possess such control over beasts in the first place. The Primal Monarch suddenly gestured to Yuan and said, "Let me see the kind of life you've lived after leaving the primal expanse." "Huh? You want to see my memories? But I don't have all of them." "That doesn't mean anything to me. While you don't remember it now, they're definitely somewhere in there, so all I need to do is take it out from hiding." "You can do that?" Yuan didn't think of this until it was mentioned. "Does it have any side effects?" He was worried that it might affect his fate. "No. My appearance in the primal expanse isn't a coincidence or an accident. It was fate that brought me here, so the Primal Monarch retrieving my memory should also be considered fate. If I was an inexperienced brat like yourself, you might lose all of your memories and become a vegetable," the Primal Monarch calmly said. "But you're not, right?" Yuan swallowed nervously. "You really don't change, huh?" A subtle smile appeared on the Primal Monarch's face. The next moment, he pointed 2 fingers at Yuan's forehead before shooting a warm beam of light directly into his head. Primal Monarch raised an eyebrow the following moment as he thought inwardly, this brat reincarnated more than once. Despite his interest and curiosity, the Primal Monarch didn't touch the memories that didn't belong to Tian. After retrieving Tian's memories, the Primal Monarch observed his entire life after leaving the primal expanse. Sometime later, the Primal Monarch lowered his hand and said, "I understand the situation. Although I was able to retrieve most of Tian's memories, I was unable to retrieve the final moments of his life due to some interference. How do you feel?" "I remember now," Yuan muttered in a somewhat dazed voice. After the Primal Monarch pulled out Tian's memories, he remembered everything from his childhood. Tian was born into a wealthy and influential family. However, he lacked the talents necessary to survive there. In fact, he didn't have any cultivation talents, which was a complete surprise to Yuan since the Immortal Monarch was the 4th reincarnation, so he should have been a genius like his previous incarnations. Due to his lack of talent, Tian was abandoned by his parents and exiled from the family at the age of 6, leaving him to wander the streets as a foundling. However, that life didn't last long as his family didn't want him to stay in the same city, so they forced him out into the wilderness, leaving him to fend for himself. Shortly after Tian entered the wilderness, he encountered a powerful magical beast that chased him to a nearby endless beast Denver. At that moment, 2 cultivators were locked in a fierce battle, causing the destruction of the endless beast Denver. The destruction of the endless beast den created a rift, and in his desperation Tian entered it, not caring where it might lead him. Once he came out on the other end, Tian found himself in an unfamiliar world that reeked of wild beasts and blood. "Where am I?" Tian muttered as he frantically looked around. Suddenly, a rough voice resounded, "I came here as soon as I noticed the scent of a human, but what is this? A human this small? You won't even be able to fill the gap between my teeth." Tian turned to the source of the voice and was immediately scared shitless when he saw a massive black dragon hovering in the sky. "This human is mine." Another voice suddenly resounded, followed by the appearance of a phoenix with fiery purple flames. "You dare covet my prey? I'll tear you to shreds." The black dragon roared. "Not before I roast you for dinner." The purple phoenix laughed arrogantly. Their aura fiercely crashed with each other. Unable to bear the pressure, Tian fainted instantly. Tian didn't know how long he had been asleep for, but by the time he woke up, neither the phoenix nor dragon could be seen, almost as if they'd vanished magically. "This is the first time I've seen a human like you." An unfamiliar but calm voice suddenly resounded. Scared by the voice, Tian jumped to his feet and began running away without looking at the source of the voice. "Where do you think you are going?" The voice that was far away from Tian a moment ago suddenly sounded like it was right behind him. Tian swiftly realized that running wasn't an option and surrendered to his fate. He stopped running and fell to his knees. "Go ahead and eat me. I don't care anymore." "Why would I eat you? Even 1,000 of you wouldn't fill half my stomach. Eating you would only arouse more hunger." The voice laughed. At this moment, Tian turned around to face the voice, and to his bewilderment, the voice belonged to a child who didn't look any older than himself. As a matter of fact, this child didn't simply look to be the same age. He looked exactly like Tian, as if he was a perfect clone. Chapter 1632 Tempering in Blood. Chapter 1632 Tempering in Blood. Who are you? Why do you look like me? Tian was terrified when he realized that the face before him was actually his own face. I like it, so I decided to use it. You decided to use it? You're not human, are you? Humans don't exist in the primal expanse. Other than you, who came here from another world, everyone here is what you call beasts. Another world? Tian couldn't comprehend this information and became dazed. Seeing his dumbfounded expression, the entity with his face said, I am the Primal Monarch, and you are currently in my world, the Primal Expanse. He continued, what are you going to do now? Humans cannot survive in this world alone, and you're not even a cultivator. The moment I leave you alone, you'll become someone's food or toy until you die. Tian fell silent. A moment later, he spoke in a defeated tone, my family abandoned me because I was born without talents, and I somehow ended up in this dangerous place. I think this is heaven's way of telling me to just die. I'm just a powerless mortal. Who am I to go against heaven's will? No matter what happens to me, I will accept it. The Primal Monarch smiled and said, you're an interesting human. Despite your young age, you're surprisingly clear-headed and intelligent. This heaven you speak of doesn't exist here. No, to be more precise, I am heaven here. The Primal Monarch boldly declared, I don't care how mighty your heaven is, it won't influence my territory. So if you want to survive, I can make that a reality. Tian stared at the Primal Monarch with wide eyes and spoke in a dazed manner, even if you say that, how am I supposed to survive in this place? The Primal Monarch showed a wide smile and said, humans have never managed to pique my interest, but I think it'll be fun to have you around for some time. You want me to follow you? Tian asked. You don't want to? I'll do it. Tian responded without any hint of fear in his voice. This was the first time he felt accepted and needed, so he had no reason to refuse, even if that individual was not human. Good. After the Primal Monarch accepted Tian as his follower, he escorted Tian back to his home, which existed in a different dimension. There, the Primal Monarch taught Tian everything he needed to know about the primal expanse and the entities living there. This brat truly has a bright mind. His ability to learn and comprehend things is almost frightening. Even predators who have lived for tens of thousands of years wouldn't be able to match him. The Primal Monarch quickly realized that the notion of Tian being talentless was completely false. To throw away such talents, humans are such foolish creatures. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed since Tian began studying under the Primal Monarch. Listen here, you brat. If you want to live more than 100 years, you'll need to start cultivating. However, it's impossible for humans to cultivate properly in the primal expanse since your bodies cannot adapt to our environment. If they forcefully cultivate our chaotic essence, they will turn into mindless beasts. In that case, isn't it hopeless for me? Tian spoke calmly, almost as if it didn't matter to him whether he could cultivate or not. 100 years is already a long time, enough to live a fulfilled life. That's what someone who's never truly experienced life would say. Anyway, the reason humans are unable to cultivate chaotic essence is because they don't have a chaotic heart, something all beasts in the primal expanse are born with. In that case, what will happen if we give them a chaotic heart? The Primal Monarch spoke with a profound smile as he glared at Tian, who swallowed nervously. Is it even possible for a human to acquire a chaotic heart? Tian raised an eyebrow. We'll find out soon enough. I guess so. Tian understood that he was the subject of an experiment that had never been done before, fully aware that things could go disastrously wrong, yet he remained indifferent. The Primal Monarch went to the primal expanse to prepare for Tian's experiment. He returned a few hours later and prepared a bath filled to the brim with the blood of various beasts. First and foremost, we need to strengthen your frail body. This will be incredibly painful, unlike anything you've ever experienced before, so brace yourself. However, to the Primal Monarch's surprise, Tian neither screamed nor showed any signs of pain during the tempering from the beginning to the very end, lasting for 6 hours straight. How do you feel? The Primal Monarch asked Tian as he emerged from the bath. Feels like my body is surging with strength, he said. Did you not experience any pain during the tempering? I did, and it hurt like hell. Tian calmly replied. The Primal Monarch gazed at the blood bath and thought to himself, I never could have imagined he'd endure 6 hours on his first tempering. How interesting. He began to feel that he had made the right choice in taking Tian under his wing. Over the next 4 years, Tian continued to bathe in the blood that the Primal Monarch provided. The pain he endured grew more intense as the quality and potency of the blood increased. Your body should be strong enough to grow a chaotic heart now. The Primal Monarch retrieved a mountain of treasures and continued, although we are born with a chaotic heart, it isn't complete at birth and requires tremendous effort to complete it. Once completed, predators can further grow a second or even third chaotic heart by consuming large amounts of treasures. Let's see if you can grow a chaotic heart by consuming treasures. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 1633 Primal Monarch's Bloodline. Chapter 1633 Primal Monarch's Bloodline. After his body tempering period ended, Tian began consuming an enormous amount of treasures provided by the Primal Monarch to cultivate a chaotic heart. He was akin to a pig, but instead of eating pig food he was being fed priceless treasures. However, despite the vast number of treasures he consumed, there were no signs of his chaotic heart forming. Despite this, Tian's cultivation soared, reaching the level of divine ancestor in just 4 years solely by consuming treasures. He achieved this without needing to cultivate or learn any cultivation techniques, as the Primal Monarch assisted him in absorbing and containing all that energy. Your chaotic heart isn't forming? We might be missing something. The Primal Monarch eventually halted feeding him treasures. Maybe it's because I lack a proper bloodline, Tian casually guessed. Bloodline, huh? That might be it. The Primal Monarch fell silent for a few moments, a contemplative expression on his face. I have never done or even thought about doing this before, but I can give you some of my blood essence which has a chance of giving you my bloodline. The Primal Monarch muttered with a curious face. Even in the divine heaven, humans can acquire bloodlines through the blood essence of magical beasts or divine beasts. However, since the creation of blood essence requires tremendous effort and even involves sacrificing one's longevity, they are only created for special occasions and are incredibly rare, even in the world of beasts. Once you accept my blood essence, we'll essentially be family. What do you think? Are you willing to accept the bloodline of a beast? The Primal Monarch asked Tian. Tian smiled and said, I already see you as a family and a father, so nothing's changed. The Primal Monarch laughed out loud, finding his answer extremely entertaining. Very well. Then, give me some time to form my blood essence. Since this is my first time doing something like this, it will take a few years to complete. A few years? What should I do in the meantime? Tian asked. I'll teach you a few of my techniques so you can use this time to train them. The Primal Monarch transferred several of his own techniques to Tian directly through his mind, allowing him to understand them instantly. However, he still needed to train to deepen his understanding and strengthen the techniques. Afterward, the Primal Monarch entered seclusion to form his blood essence, leaving Tian alone for the next decade. In these 10 years, Tian focused on training the techniques bestowed by the Primal Monarch, occasionally tempering his body and consuming the leftover treasures. His cultivation reached the peak of immortal ascension without any issues. Tian asked the Primal Monarch before leaving for the Primal Expanse. How should I know? This is meant to expand your experience, so live however you want for the next 100 years. Also, you will be hunted everywhere you go because you're a human, and your scent will drive everyone mad, so try to stay alive. I don't want all of my efforts to go to waste. I will try not to disappoint you. Tian left for the Primal Expanse with an excited smile on his face. Chapter 1634 Tian's Growth. Chapter 1634 Tian's Growth. After Tian left home to gain experience in the Primal Expanse, the Primal Monarch secretly followed him, having nothing better to do. Of course, since this was Tian's first time exploring alone, he also felt a little worried for him. However, the Primal Monarch's worries were quickly relieved once he saw how quickly Tian adapted to the Primal Expanse. While his cultivation as a bronze immortal was respectable in the Primal Expanse, it was far from sufficient for him to be reckless and careless. Tian didn't have any big ambitions and wanted to complete his chaotic heart as soon as possible, which he set as his primary goal. He traversed the Primal Expanse in search of treasures, dominating nearly every territory he encountered. Tian's presence quickly spread throughout the Primal Expanse like wildfire, and within a few years, nearly every powerhouse there had heard of the human causing havoc in their territories. A human who can cultivate and use his powers? Bullshit. There's no way such a human exists. What? This human has a chaotic heart? Are you sure he's really human and not just a predator in disguise? Most of the powerhouses refused to believe that a human could create such chaos in their world, especially when every human before him had been unable to adapt to their chaotic essence. However, some had their interest piqued and left their territories to seek out this human they had been hearing so much about. After another decade, it was all but confirmed that Tian was real, and he was growing at such a tremendous rate that he could pose a threat to even the powerhouses in the primal expanse if given a few more decades. Tian quickly became a presence that could not be ignored, prompting predators across the primal expanse to attempt to either tame or kill him. However, every failed attempt only made Tian stronger. Eventually, Tian became so powerful that it took several powerhouses just to face him on equal footing. Fuck. Where's the Primal Monarch? Why isn't he doing anything about this human when his world is being flipped upside down? The natives of the primal expanse were puzzled by the Primal Monarch's silence. Normally, whenever a situation threatened the balance of the world or someone caused excessive chaos, the Primal Monarch would intervene. Yet he was nowhere to be seen. This made some wonder if something had happened to the Primal Monarch. However, after 100 years had passed since Tian first appeared in the primal expanse, he vanished as suddenly as he had arrived. Unbeknownst to the natives, Tian had returned to the Primal Monarch's home. How was your experience in the outside world? The Primal Monarch asked upon Tian's return, pretending as if he hadn't been watching him the entire time. I took you in and helped you grow so that you could one day return to your world and become living proof that this heaven isn't omnipotent and its will could be defied. Tian was speechless, unsure of how to respond. Chapter 1635 Primal Monarch's Blood Essence. Chapter 1635 Primal Monarch's Blood Essence. Do I really have to leave and return to the human world? Tian stared at the Primal Monarch with a dispirited expression. The Primal Monarch smiled and said, "The primal expanse isn't your final stop. You are fated to achieve great things in the human world. They'll give you a few years to prepare, but you must leave within 10 years. Tian sighed, "Fine. If you so desperately want me to leave, I won't argue any further. However, how do I even return to the human world? According to what I've heard, it's impossible to leave the primal expanse. There is only one way to leave the primal expanse, and that is through me," the Primal Monarch said. "Whenever you're prepared to leave, just let me know." Tian nodded. In the years that followed, Tian sought to learn all he could from the Primal Monarch, yet he soon realized there was nothing more the Primal Monarch could teach him. Despite this, Tian chose not to waste their remaining time together. In the blink of an eye, 9 years passed. "I am ready to leave." On a certain day, Tian approached the Primal Monarch to declare his departure. The Primal Monarch nodded and said, "Before you leave, promise me one thing." "What?" "That you will never submit to anyone, especially to Heaven's will, ever again and become a being worthy of the Monarch's bloodline. Also, don't come back to the primal expanse unless you have fully awakened my bloodline." "You never told me how to awaken it even though I have asked many times," Tian frowned. "Because you didn't need such knowledge back then." The Primal Monarch shook his head and he continued speaking. "Anyway, to fully awaken the Monarch's bloodline, you will need to absorb the blood essence of 9 different beasts with a supreme-grade bloodline. Supreme-grade blood essence. And 9 of them. That'll take an eternity," Tian exclaimed. "There are barely a dozen predators in the entire primal expanse who possess a supreme-grade bloodline, and asking even one of them for their blood essence was nearly impossible, let alone 9. Moreover, he had to accomplish this task in the human world, where the likelihood of finding even 9 entities with a supreme-grade bloodline was slim, if not non-existent. You're asking for too much. You might as well tell me never to return." Tian sighed out loud. "Are you going to give up without even trying? I didn't know I'd raise such a useless quitter." The Primal Monarch sneered in disdain. Tian clenched his fists and gnashed his jaw. "Just wait, you old booger. Not only will I awaken my bloodline, but I'll even take your position as the Primal Monarch and force you into retirement the next time I come back, so prepare yourself." "Ah, you'll take my position? It's a promise. I cannot wait, you snotty little brat." "Then he'll consume it now." Yuan retrieved the blood essence. Chapter 1636 Awakening Immortal Monarch's Bloodline. Chapter 1636 Awakening Immortal Monarch's Bloodline. Yuan stared at the blood essence in his grasp with a nervous gaze. Despite the Primal Monarch's assurance that it was safe to consume at his cultivation level, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. After all, the blood essence belonged to an entity likely far stronger than even the dragon ancestor, whose blood essence he also possessed and has yet to consume due to his lack of cultivation. Are you really scared of a single drop of blood? When did you become such a coward? The Primal Monarch casually mocked. A single drop of blood? Is that how little you view your own blood essence? Yuan shook his head as he opened the bottle. After taking a deep breath, Yuan tilted his head backward and poured the blood essence onto his tongue. The blood essence immediately melted into his tongue. Yuan immediately sat down and began cultivating in silence. He could feel his body burning, almost as if his blood was boiling, but it wasn't as intense as his first experience as Tian. A few days later, Yuan's bloodline had ascended by 2 grades. Unlike treasures and techniques, bloodlines had only 4 known grades, with the vast majority being royal grade. After royal grade came imperial grade. In the human world, those with imperial grade bloodlines were regarded as nobles, hailing from the most elite bloodlines. In the beast world they were considered royalty. Above imperial grade was divine grade. Those with a divine grade bloodline were destined to rise above all others, standing as emperors among their kind. If one searched the entire 9 heavens, there would be less than 100 entities with a divine grade bloodline. The highest known grade of bloodline was the supreme grade bloodline. Only the most powerful entities such as Dragon Goddess Yeo, the Primordial Phoenix, and the Dragon Ancestor, possessed such bloodlines. They are so rare that one could count all of them with 2 hands. Only divine grade? I was expecting it to reach supreme grade. Yuan mused afterward. The Monarch's bloodline is, without doubt, supreme grade at the very least. However, you've only partially awakened your bloodline. If you want your bloodline to reach supreme grade, you'll need to consume supreme grade blood essences to truly awaken your bloodline's full potential. The Primal Monarch said to him. I need to consume 9 different supreme grade blood essence, correct? Can I assume that your blood essence doesn't count? The Primal Monarch nodded. My blood essence won't count, so you still need 9 more. The Dragon Ancestor should have a supreme grade bloodline, so that's 1 down. If I count the Primordial Phoenix's blood essence in Feng's possession, that's 2. What are your plans now? The Primal Monarch suddenly asked him. Will you be returning to the human world now? He took a deep breath and spoke in a commanding voice. I don't have time to play with you lot. Scram. Though his voice was barely louder than usual, it sent a powerful ripple through the entire Mystic Valley. The moment the Primals heard his voice, which resounded inside their heads like a thunderclap, they immediately turned and fled in the opposite direction. He shook his head. No, I came here because I personally have business with the Primordial Phoenix. What sort of business? Yuan retrieved Feng Yuxiang's egg and said, I was told that they would be able to help my friend here. The phoenixes before him trembled, their faces filled with shock when they saw the egg in Yuan's grasp. That is. Where the hell did you get that? The young lady cried out loud. That shell. It can't be. The middle-aged man swallowed nervously. We must notify Her Majesty immediately, the woman exclaimed. Yuan raised an eyebrow at their reaction and asked, Does that mean I get to meet the Primordial Phoenix? However, before the phoenixes could respond, Yuan suddenly felt a strong, overwhelming pressure appear out of nowhere. Yuan tilted his head upward to see a massive, majestic phoenix hovering above them. When the phoenixes noticed this newcomer, they immediately lowered their heads and greeted it. We greet your majesty. The Primordial Phoenix? Yuan recognized the Primordial Phoenix's appearance since she looked exactly like Feng Yuming in her beast form. In the next moment, the Primordial Phoenix began to shrink, transforming into the form of a human. The Primordial Phoenix took the form of a stunning woman, tall and slender, with long fiery red hair cascading down her back, nearly reaching her feet. Her presence radiated a majestic aura, one that commanded respect like that of an empress. She looks just like Feng Yuming. Yuan was startled by how closely this primordial phoenix resembled Feng Yuming. Yet it was clear that she wasn't Feng Yuming, but another distinct primordial phoenix. The primordial phoenix descended gracefully, halting just before Yuan, her sharp gaze locking onto the egg in his hands. After a brief, tense silence, she shifted her eyes to Yuan and asked in a calm yet commanding tone, "Who are you?" Yuan, a human from the human world. What is your relationship with the one inside this shell? We're companions. Then you're not much of a companion, letting her end up in such a state, the primordial phoenix remarked, her tone laced with disdain. Yuan narrowed his eyes and said, "You don't even know what happened. That's irrelevant. Whatever. I'm not here to argue but to see if you can heal her." The primordial phoenix looked at the egg and said, "Of course I can heal her. However, why should I do that for you? Did you think I would be willing to heal her just because she's a phoenix? I was hopeful, but if you're unwilling to heal her, just let me know so I can stop wasting my time here. How dare you speak to Her Majesty in such a tone? Even the Primal Monarch addresses her with respect." The middle-aged man shouted, his voice brimming with anger. The primordial phoenix narrowed her eyes at him. After a brief silence she spoke, her voice calm yet firm, "I am willing to heal her,